You're live. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you might be. This is Hawkeye Two Feathers. I'm in Southwest Georgia, US of A, and today is Thursday, June the 7th, 2018. I'm David Nell, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I've been wanting to do an Earth Wobble update, but down here, we had a little bit too much cloudiness, which is okay because we've got rain with it, and we definitely need the rain. And so tonight, I decided that I'd give my two little eyeballs the opportunity to go outside and observe the location of the stars, because as I've done in previous videos, I have watched the moon and its progression against the sky. I've also watched how the sun will come up early or late sometimes. It's just been an amazing journey since I have started my little observations here in the Little Ochlockonee River Hermitage down here in South Georgia. And by the way, Little Ochlockonee River Hermitage is just a place if you need to get away or if someone needs to, whatever, there are places to camp, river in the backyard. And if we continue to have a normal kind of rain, it might actually start flowing again. Who knows? But I won't say that there's any wildlife in it, though. Anyway, so I have been wanting to observe where the planets are in relationship to the stars, and also I've been keeping an eye on the North Pole, thus in the title description. And so tonight I had it's a little hazy, it seems, but fairly clear, and I would expect that. Let's see, it's 10:30 in my house. It's 11:30 Eastern Daylight Time. I refuse to change my clock. I'm going to stay. This is Dave time, as I call it. They're trying to mess with my head. That's okay, fine. In my house, it's 10:30. Yeah, on the computer, it's 11:30 Eastern Daylight Time. Now, yes, that's crazy, but I'm doing an experiment with time. Slightly off topic, but not. In that, from every experiment can be altered, and it's been proven scientifically. There's a name for it, which I can't recall, but that the observer can alter the outcome of the results of the experiment, depending on the experiment and how large, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but to the point, the observer can affect the outcome. Now, in my experiment, I am the observer, and my observation is important that I am consistent. I knew it was a C word. Consistent, not that, never mind. Consistent, for example, me sitting here in this chair in this location, and my south-facing windows, which are behind the camera, and I have a window right here that, the house has been here now for, at least this portion of the house has been here for 25 years. I've been on this location for 35, going on 37, 40, I don't know. It's 35 years at least. Now, when the sky is clear enough and I can see the stars and the moon and whatever, I can sit here in my chair and observe them, sometimes without moving to observe where things are in the sky from this observational point of view right here. So if I sit back a little bit, or if I move over like this or whatever, but within this small realm, my observation is pretty stable from every time. Why am I saying this? Because I'm trying to explain that my observations from this location and the fact that the house doesn't move, I don't think, doesn't look like it, in relation to earthbound things anyway. But when I look up at celestial objects, right now, I'm not sure what that is. My guess would be that that's Mars that I can see through this window. Now, last night and the night before, as I was doing videos and things and just pondering, and, I sit here and drink my coffee and make my observations, and I noticed that it was very easy for me to see if that is Mars. It doesn't really matter what planet it is. It's the fact that it's moved from my point of view in being able to observe it. I'm going to say it's Mars. That's irrelative. The fact that I've been sitting here for the last week and could see it very easily right through these, here in the window, and I didn't have to bend down or move or anything. I could just sit here. While I was doing the video last night, I could see Mars early on, and then it moved out of view, and then another planet, which is coming along, maybe Jupiter, maybe Saturn, I'm not sure. I just know that it's another planet, and it's over right here, and it'll move into view as the evening progresses, or the morning. Now, with that said, whatever that is, my guess is Mars. It's way too high. It's out of whack. Because in order for me to see it, I have to lean down now. And I mean, I'm leaning down, and I'm just now getting it into view. Okay? I can't just wait a little bit of wobble if I can see it just at the top of the window, the sill. Now, last night and the night before, it was much it was just right dead there in the middle of the window. Oh, look, beautiful planet, blah, 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 get to watch. It's out of view unless I move my head and scrunch down and look up. Okay. Now, did the planet move? I'm not sure, because everything in our solar system right now is so wiggly, waggly, woggly. I'm not sure if I know it looks like the moon is rolling, because when it comes up, it's facing this way, and most of the time it faces that way going down, because the moon doesn't rotate much. But what I've noticed lately is, instead of the face being, to me, would be, his head would be cocked to my left, but it would be from his perspective to the right. Anyway, I think in terms of a director and stage right and stage left. Anyway, but recently the moon has shifted and his face was cocked, like going from, it would be like if you were looking at a clock face, you would go from a 10 o'clock to a 2 o'clock position. All right. I know things are wobbling around and it's all right, but I mean, this would happen in 3 days rather than over the course of what would normally be at me being 65 and watching the sky since I was a child in this life. I'm, oh, look, there's the moon, and it comes up looking like this, and it comes up looking like that. And lately, beings that I'm much more aware of what I'm observing, like, rather than just saying, oh, look, there's the man in the moon, which is what I would normally do. Now I look at the moon, there's the man in the moon, but which way is he leaning? And you say, well, what difference does it make? Well, it makes a lot of difference. Just like me sitting here not being able to see that planet through my window. Now, am I in a different dimension? Am I on a different timeline right now? I don't know. I'm on Dave's time on that clock back there. Now, let me move to the next point of this, because as I observed this, that's what led me to go outside and go, where is everything else in the sky tonight? Now, I've mentioned in previous videos of mine when I talk about Earth Wobble and where the North Pole is. And every time that I wanted to be able to see the North Pole, it's always been difficult at best. Okay. And depending on what time of the year, when you, from the Northern Hemisphere, from my location here in South Georgia, about 40 miles north of the Florida border. So just relatively speaking, I think it's almost like the 32nd, almost on the 32 parallels thingy, 31 to, anyway, it's right in there. For the longest time, if I wanted to see the North Pole, I have to go to a particular location in my yard. Now, the way they brought the power lines onto my property for the house here and the defunct trailer up there, but the pole's still there. And then my neighbor decided they wanted electricity down by their pond that never holds water right, and they never used the pole, and now I have electric wires strung across my property for no reason. But anyway, I digress. But so my point is, though, I know where the wires are, the poles have been there, and I don't think the poles have gotten up and walked recently. Either that or I'm on another timeline, because when I went out in the yard tonight to go to my location, which includes where this telephone pole is, feeding electricity to the house, that has been a static point here on Earth that I've been able to use as okay, I'm standing here and there's the North Pole. Okay. And I know if I go uphill a little bit or go downhill, but there are trees in the distance. And also my neighbor has a emergency light that stays on all the time. So there are certain parameters that I have to follow to see the North Pole, because my house is 2-story and I can't see it from the yard out here and other things. So I got to get past the bright light of my neighbor, which shines straight down the power line. So if I go just a few more feet, I hit the edge of the shadow, which the rest of the hill then is in shadow. All right. So I have to get to the shadow line. Then I can line up from my pump house to the pole and then look in the distance, because now I'm in the shadow and I can see the trees in the distance. And there's a taller one here and a shorter one here, and then one not so tall. And that's the outline. Those trees have been there for forever, kind of thing, you know? So when I look out there, it's like a cookie cutter pattern in the sky, a template, if you will. So, and if I stand in relatively the same location, when I go up the hill to observe these things, they also fall in line. It's almost like a gun sight in a way. You know, if you don't look at the end of the barrel, but you're looking over here, left or right. But anyway, so with a tall pine tree and a shorter something, a bushy kind of thing, and then some other trees that are growing along here, almost, you know, perfect. So I could line up between the tallest one, which actually is more in the foreground. That's why it looks taller. And the other ones are further back. All right. So I've got this little notch with the trees that I can use as a sight. Okay. So that's what I do. I'm like, okay, it's right there in the notch. All right. I know, long explanation, but I have particular reference points so that I know that I'm just like, well, am I standing too far to the left or too far to the right? Or, you know, I have to make sure that my observational point is the same. So, because as the observer, I might not be standing in the same location, and therefore my observations would be wrong. I would be cheating myself, and especially if I came on and did a YouTube or something about it, I would be cheating you with false information. I don't want to do that. That's why I would rather not say anything until I get a clearer sky, until I get a better beat on things, if you will. Now, I don't have a camera to be able to show you these things. But if you've watched this now, that they'll go outside then and say, hey, where is the North Pole in relationship to where, and pick the same within a foot kind of deal. You know, line it up with your house, line it up with a neighbor's telephone pole, or, you know, like whatever it is. Use something around to get you an idea. Standing up, like I say, put an X on the ground. Now, I have little pieces of pipe that I stick in the ground, little pieces of plastic pipe from my construction days. And so I can go back, I can go out, and they just stick up just a little bit, but I can see them. And I used to have some of them painted with fluorescents, but I know where they are. So I just go to that location. However, if I want to be pinpoint spot on, I go to one of my plastic pipes that I drove in the ground, and I am exactly on. Well, because I'm not using instruments, I'm just using my observations. It's good enough. So, but that's how you get to be good at what you do in as far as your observations. Because if somebody says anything, you can say, look, I stand right here every time, right here. You know, not over there, not over there, not a half a block down the street, and go, oh, because I've done it to myself. I went up the hill a little ways and was looking at the stars and everything, and I thought, oh my God, this is all out of whack, blah, blah, blah. This was to myself. And I came back down the hill, and then I went, wait a minute, I need to check my landmarks. Oh, it's not as bad as I thought it was. And that had to do with my observation from where I was standing. And from where I was standing, it askewed my view. And I was looking for it to stay the same. And when I, you know, so I just walk out the house in the middle of the night and want to see where the stars are, you know, and smoke a cigarette and check things out. And I was like, holy crap, everything's moved. Well, that happened tonight after I saw Mars not in my window any longer. Now, I came back down the hill to check my observation points. And yep, I could tell things were off, but I couldn't give you a measurement because I used my hand. A lot of times when I was in the Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts and back in those days, and when the old timers were teaching us astronomy, sailors do, and they still do, you know, don't trust your instrument, trust your eyes, they would say. Trust your instincts as well. So one of the things is like you use your fingers, you hold them up at the distance and you go, okay. And there's a technique, I think it's the Biltmore stick. Back when they were trying to figure out, how big a tree was. And they still use this technique, but they've got more modern terms too, but called the Biltmore stick. And what you did was you held it at a particular point and you stood took 10 paces back, held the stick up, and then used your stick as a scale. And you really accurate, really, as to how tall the tree was. And then if you took a circumference dimension around the tree, then you could figure out how many board feet are in the tree. Okay, so I'm using basically the same method, but I'm using my hand or thumb or whatever from my same point location of observation. Now, that's a lot of talk for that, ain't it? But if anybody listens to this, this is how you do it. It's not real hard. And there is actually depending on how long your arm is and what this is, that each one of your fingers could be construed more or less as a degree or maybe 5 degrees, depending what you're looking at. So because your fingers are generally pretty easy to follow and everything, as far as trying to hold up a ruler in the dark, you know, you can say, well, that came out to the end of this finger. So it's the bottom of this finger. So it's an easy way to just hold your hand up to the sky, especially in the dark, because you can see the shadow and you can block out the stars. So in this particular instance, this is what I'm doing. I'm checking with my hand because my location, my spot in the yard, the North Star has always been 4 fingers up from the top of that flat tree line, but in line with the notch. Okay. And, you know, a little bit of the thumb kind of thing. So give or take that much. So what I've been noticing is the North Star keeps inching up off of my tree line horizon. Now, what does that mean? Well, down here in South Georgia, if unless the whole constellation or the North Star itself is moving, which that's for, I'm going to pick that up here after this. The simplest solution would be in our world on our planet is that my location has shifted. Okay. Now, I'm not suggesting that my property moved, but I'm suggesting that the planet has rolled again. Okay. Now, I've noticed that the moon has been up and then it rolls down and then it rolls back up. Last night, early this morning, I couldn't get a shot at it, and it was too cloudy, but it was a really strange sunrise. I just gotta say. And the moon was in a funky spot. It was almost like it had turned back around instead of leaning to what would be my right from my observational point. Okay. And it was higher in the sky than it was a few days earlier, by the way, because I was expecting it to continue its downward trend to its lowest point, which usually is towards new moon, which we got about 6 days before new moon. So we're in last quarter. And so I was, you know, in my observations over the last 2 years, I'm expecting the moon to be really low in the sky, and I can go find it and it'll be there. I went to look and it wasn't. It was up, way up higher than I expected. Okay, so that's another shift. Now, that could be the moon moving by itself, okay? And I really don't think that Mars has moved that much. Not sure, just saying. But from my observation point, it ain't in the same place, okay? That's the truth. Now, North Pole, it's not in the same place. It took me 2 full finger hands and that from the horizon. The Big Dipper, I mean, the whole thing is almost straight overhead. That doesn't happen from my location here. Okay, it doesn't happen. When the Big Dipper has swung around in the constellation, and actually it doesn't, we do. It's where our position is. But when most of it is overhead, it's never overhead. It's always about 10 degrees to the north. And, you know, you can see the big part of the Big Dipper. The Dipper part is overhead. And then because I know this is in the winter time, in the fall, I use the Big Dipper to find Andromeda and all these other places, and that are fixing to come up with the summer and then the fall zodiac to look at, right? So the North Pole, Polaris, the star, it's too high. But so is the Big Dipper, all right? Big Bear. When I went out and I looked up, and it was straight over it's straight over my head. So I ask you, don't trust my judgment. Look at your own world. But my world, and where the celestial stars and all the things are right now, they're not in the right location as they were. Let's see, my last good observation of the North Star was at least 3 weeks ago, because we've had cloudy weather. They've been spraying and stuff. And, but I can attest to you right now that with a pretty decently clear sky, North Star, way too high in the sky for me. I mean, if I were to drive north, and I've got friends and relatives in Ohio, and I observed the North Pole when I was in Ohio, and it didn't seem like it was that much higher off of the horizon. But You know, that's 1,000 miles north of me. So, okay, 780. Um, but in that distance, you would expect with the Earth and getting closer to the North Pole, for the North Pole to rise and for it to be closer over your head, okay, not further down. The further you go to the equator, you should see the North Pole drop to the point where you can't see the North Pole. That's why at the equator, you now start picking up what would be the South Pole Star and the Southern Cross, because we can't see them in the Northern Hemisphere because of the curvature of the Earth. I know, flat earthers, my apologies. But I'm a rounder. I'm a rounder. So I advise you to go outside and take a look at the sky. The moon won't be coming up until, I don't know, 2, 3, 4 in the morning or something like that here. And we are going into a new moon. I think it'll be on Tuesday of next week, which would be kind of odd. Hang on a second. I got it right here. Wrong book. I wrote new moon, full moon down in my little planning book here. And, interesting. New moon is next Wednesday on the 13th. This is Thursday the 7th. Yep. And yesterday was the first day of fourth quarter. All right. By the calendar, I use, well, this planner book actually has new moon, full moon in it, and the names and dates and stuff. It's, you know, for $2 once a year, you know, it's worth it. But the June 11th, we're supposed to get some interesting intel. Okay. The 12th is G.W. Bush's senior birthday, and also supposed to be the summit. Then we have a new moon on the 13th. There's also supposed to be some intel or something on the 13th. Now, after looking at this calendar, I hadn't thought about it, but why would new intel be coming out on the 13th, also on the new moon? Well, there are great Earth energy, galactic, what to humans would be magical, okay? And so the fact that there's supposed to be something positive for some of us and negative for the negative folk, but oh well, on the 13th. But I've just noticed that it is also the new moon. So new moon means getting rid of all the old crud and having the opportunity to grow into a new bright full moon. That's when you plant seeds so they come up good. And so it's like, Now the next day, June the 14th, I realized is Flag Day in the USA. It's also our president's birthday, Donald J. Trump. Now, some will curse that, but it's just a fact. And so next week is supposed to prove to be a really interesting week. Oh boy. And I can't wait. Every day is something new. And one of the things that I've noticed, especially like looking at the sky, looking where the stars are located, where the moon comes up, its position, and just other quirky things. I mean, there are folks reporting that, now I don't know if the tree got up and walked, but there are instances of folks saying that they walked out their back door and where an oak tree used to be, it's moved 10 foot to the left or the right or whatever. Now, I do believe that with all the things that are going on, as I've stated in some previous videos, is that we are merging timelines. And that's what some of the galactics are saying. I feel it in my bones. That's the information that my spirit guide has been, it's been telling me for a long time. So I just, not just trying to repeat it, but yeah, I just want to, how do we say that? It's not like I'm trying to shove this down your throat, because nobody could tell me what was going on. I had questions. I have questions. I have questions. Why is no one speaking about, this earth wobble business? I still don't hear many folks talking about the fact that, how come the North Star is 30 degrees further north than it was? How come I can observe the entire Big Dipper straight over my head here in South Georgia location? Explain that to me, y'all. They can't. That's why they got their mouth shut. The answer, though, is simple. And with the volcanoes going off, I was in a video last night when it went off, basically, doing a live stream. And I was discussing the volcano in Guatemala that went off the other day, and what I felt, and the pain and the torture and of what happened to the people. And I said, there's going to be another volcano go off south of that location. I'm thinking it might be down toward, it's between Panama and El Salvador and whatever, but it's south of the fire volcano is what they call it. Fuego, yeah. And lo and behold, it was a lot closer than I was expecting, but it's like across the valley and up the next hill is where the next volcano erupted. Holy cow. While I was speaking about it, more or less, it popped its top, and nobody was expecting that one. I still say there's going to be another one. That one was just odd, but my feeling now as I still look at this information, there's still another one further south that's going to go. And people are going to be like, what the hell? And so I know I'm going to put this out to the universe. And if you wish to like and share, that's okay. That's not my job to expect anyone to do that. I'm putting forth this message to the universe. For those of you along the Mexico City, especially, there's something's going on there. But the ETs are trying to control that one. I really got to say. But the volcanoes going down below Guatemala and Nicaragua, Panama. If you live in a valley of one of these big volcanoes, I would seriously question whether I should live as close as I do. Use the other. I don't speak Spanish, so I can't translate this. But I'm hoping that people will realize that it's just not that volcano, that it's not just another one that just popped off early this morning next to that one. If you live around any old volcano, you really need to reevaluate where you live and how you're living. Maybe it's that you got a friend, you can move up to another hill that's not a volcano, or I don't know. But all I'm saying is that this isn't the end. It's not the end of the world. For some folks it is. But this is not the end of the world. It is, however, the end of an era and the beginning of another. Watch the stars. Look at the planets. Watch the earth. It's evident. You can look in the Bible and say this is the end times. You're right. But it doesn't matter whether everything in that Bible has to come true for the rest of the information to be valid. Okay? There are folks saying, well, Solomon's temple ain't built yet, so this is just a bunch of bullshit. What if Solomon's temple was built somebody else and they didn't tell you, and you've got the wrong spot, or whatever? What if Mother Earth can't wait on Solomon's temple, or whatever in Revelation? It doesn't matter. We are where we are right now. And people really need to be aware of where they're living. Like there's an old cinder cone at the end of the Appalachian Mountain Range-ish in northwest Georgia. Could that go off? There's been an increase in earthquakes up around Chattanooga, Tennessee. I love Chattanooga. But up in that corner up there in Alabama, Tennessee, Chattanooga, North Georgia, there's been an increase, I would say at least a tenfold, in the last several years. And now that these other things are happening, there was a earthquake on the New Madrid yesterday. Okay. I think it was around a 3-ish. That's not the point. The point is things are moving. Pressure is being transferred, just like Dutch sense proves. Things are happening. So because there's such a force of magma coming out of Kilauea or on the Big Island, if you look now and go see what it looks like now, there is so much pressure pushing that magma up to become lava from the down in the earth. It's flowing like water with really muddy water with sand and stuff in it. It's whoa. I don't think I could. I think you would have to run to keep up with it. I don't think you could walk and stay. I don't think so. So that's how fast it's moving, and so people need to be aware that what's going on under their feet is going to go on in other places. As the earthquakes have been showing, the next other place to really pay attention to is over Italy, Greece, blah, 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 over there, big time. Also Pakistan, Turkey, Iran, over there, big time. That volcano down off the coast of Africa between Madagascar, big time. Hadn't moved in 6,000 years and it's smoking, big time. Now, yesterday it came out that there's a volcano in New Zealand that's showing like it's a really tall one, water in the top, blah, blah, blah. The water's melting or something, and they're seeing steam rise off of it. Now, that's in New Zealand. Okay. So if people aren't aware that Mother Earth is really, 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 really in a change, and that you can tell the wobble has increased, where I was seeing about a 10, maybe a 15-degree wobble effect just by observing the stars and walking out in my own look at that kind of thing. Seeing how high the Big Dipper is tonight in my sky and how high the North Pole is in my sky, holy crap. We have moved 30 degrees total. And this is now over the last 2 years from my observations from my location. Now, we have wobbled back the other way now, but to be able to go outside and see portions of the Big Dipper sticking south from over my head, where I might have been able to see just the edge of the Big Dipper. The Dipper part is right over my head. I mean, it extends south from me. That's not normal from my location. Now, maybe I'm in a parallel universe. Maybe my world is Dave's world down here, and my clock, the way I have it set, is different from everybody else. Maybe I'm in the time warp and everybody else is in the real world. Maybe my world is the real world and your world isn't. I'm just messing with you, but hypothetically, could that be possible? I mean, I'm speaking to you. Hey, is that tinfoil hatter up there? Hey. Hey, Engine Joe, what you doing? I just listened to the Bachman Turner Overdrive. I was into that in 74, even though it was just 9. Bachman, BTO was great, man. And somebody else, too, that was good from way back then, and a lot of people don't listen to him, was the James Gang. Ooh, I can't remember any. I mean, I just remember I had a, oops, I spelled it wrong. What'd you spell? What, Bachman? Who cares? A J, hey, I mean, if you could be spelling it in Spanish and the J could be an H, like in Jesus. Just saying. How are you, tinfoil? No, this is a cigarette. Yeah, Joe Walsh and the James Gang. Yeah. Oh, was that Joe Walsh and James Gang? Oh, okay. I started a record collection in about 1964 when the Beatles came out and I Want to Hold Your Hand. And I mean, I knew how to sing it in German, and when Michel, my belle, I could sing it in French too. But every word, in fact, back in the day, lip syncing was a really popular thing. And I actually, one year at summer camp, I can't remember what song it was at the moment, but I lip sync. It was the War of 1812. That's what it was. In 1814, we took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. They put a little record player on the stage on a chair, and you went up there and you put your record on, and everybody listened, and they judged you for lip syncing. That was my first award in theater. That's cute. I hadn't thought about that in a long time. Joe Walsh also sang a great album called Roller Coaster Weekend. Yep. Yep. I played Joe Walsh when I was doing radio. It would have been it would have been about 75, 76 era up until 78. I was doing top 10 drive time it was a very popular AM station in Tifton, Georgia, because it was right on the interstate. And back in them days, reception was bad. And in fact, I had a special back in those days. I mean, back in 1976, it might have been 70. I can't remember the year exactly when it came out. I just know between 76 and 78, I was working radio. But I picked on the boss. Like, look, man, you got me working second shift, man. How about Friday nights, man? You give me an hour to play an album or something, because they would get in demo albums all the time. And Ritter was really big in radio terms back then. Big, fat, ugly gay man. But anyway, I digress. Maybe that's why he was so popular. Consequently, I got canned because I wouldn't go along with him anyway. But straight tobacco. Yeah, man, the 70s were great. What a decade. So much changed. And then the decades after that, even more and more and more. Now look at the world. It looks similar, but it's also different. The roads around here have pretty much been here since I've lived here for the last 40-something years. And I drive down those roads, but when I look out the window, I'm not in the same place. South Georgia. And I drive to other locations, but because I live here and I'm familiar with this area, and I don't just mean a new business going up or something like that. I'm talking about farms that have gone, farmhouses, peoples, families that lived in a certain area of the county, and, that they had the main house. And then as the kids grew, they either got a trailer or something, and it was down the hill, and they all worked the farm and blah, blah, blah. They grew tobacco around here. And I remember back in the day in the summertime cropping tobacco. I met people from Tampa who would come up to South Georgia and work tobacco during the summer. And I had a girlfriend, in fact, met her back in Tampa when we both got back to Tampa after that. But back in the 60s. And so all of that's gone. All of the infrastructure of all of that, all the tobacco business, all the people riding we used to big burlap bags and just put the tobacco in it and tie it up. And 3 or 4 of us would sling these things on a wagon, and 4 or 5 of us get on the back and ride into town. And, it all drop off the tobacco and get us a beer, and we'd, ride the tractor back to the house kind of thing. And it might be 15 miles in the country where we're going to. And that was what was going on. About this time of year, folks were starting to crop tobacco, and that's just all gone. It's just all gone. Other things too, not just that, and the culture that went with it. I mean, it was cool, okay, tobacco, I'm smoking tobacco. And Now I don't know where the tobacco comes from, and I don't know what was on it. Man, I want to go back in time, but all our wisdom is hard earned, and to give that up would be a drag. What little we have gained is debatable. You're right. And I'm, in doing the video, you joined me last night, and I couldn't believe it was 4 hours and something, but it seemed like something that had to come out. And in doing so, it gave me the opportunity to think about, walking on the fence and walking between worlds. And I know I, I don't have to prove it to anyone. What I'm trying to do is understand what's happening to me out loud. And so that, when I see something, on the fence, like the veil is being lifted, it's almost like I'm looking through a thick plastic, visqueen. You know what I'm talking about? Just roll plastic, 6 mil plastic, and it's almost like I went from I could see stuff in the 6 mil moving around behind it. Now it's gotten to like a 4 mil or a 3 mil, so it's more transparent. But there's still a film between me and it. In fact, when I was out in the yard earlier, I got some flashes in the sky and saw a really cool. It's been an hour now, hour and a half, but there was a good streaker of a meteor or something coming through, and I mean it started in the east and wow, straight across, and it burned green first, and then red, and then whitened out. But so, which is cool because sometimes I'm told go outside, and I'll get a really good streaker go by. And then later on, I might be told in a little like, what you saw earlier? Yeah, that wasn't a meteor, or that was a piece of space debris that just burned up. Oh, really? Yeah, we just shot that one down, and that was it coming into the atmosphere and burning up. Oh, that's why the funky color is in the long trail. Uh-huh. And I've seen that so many times, and then I don't think that's what it is. My brain is trained to see meteors. But then later on, I'll get a tap and go, remember that one? Yeah, that was a ship. Oh, that's part of the war. Oh, and I have literally seen I've described it before, but an orange orb moving across, a white one appearing, shooting a laser, disappearing, and the orange one blew up and it was gone. Holy crap. And so it's like, all right. So when they show me these things or tell me to go outside, look up at the sky. And tonight, in between the stars, there would be a really bright flash. And I was thinking, well, that's an airplane. It'll flash again. Watch, keep an eye on, don't move, no more flash. Look around, okay, if the plane was moving X amount of distance, and there are planes around here, I'm north of Tallahassee, Jacksonville's that away. Valdosta is towards the southwest some, and there's an Air Force base over there. I mean, there's air traffic. And so, and I look for them, and I know there are certain patterns, there are certain times when certain corporate jets will fly into Thomasville, and, and I almost can, set my watch to some of these. But tonight, and I wasn't expecting this, I'm just looking up, right, where are the stars? But then a really bright flash of white. I mean, strobe bright white. Strobe light white. Bright. But just one. Boom. It didn't come over here. If it was a wingtip of an aircraft, you'd be able to pick it up over here, over here, over here. Nope. I'm like, well, what the hell? All right. So then I'm like, well, maybe it was that way, this way, that way. Nope. It didn't pick back up. That's odd. But the thing is, it happened like 5 or 6 times, and it wasn't there. And then a few minutes later, bam, a really bright one straight overhead. Okay. So I'm looking around. Now I ought to be able to see where this airplane's going. Nope. Just one bright flash. But as I'm standing out there, I got this nice little warm, fuzzy message that, yep, we're here. And I was like, well, I know, okay, you don't have to prove it to me anymore. I already know you're up there, but it was almost like, I actually thought that they might be firebugs, fireflies, because they're out. But this is way too bright, way too white. And that's only happening one time. Now, the other things that I was noticing besides that, while I was observing the sky and where is everything right now here from here, it seems like the stars and the planets, although there's just a couple visible from here, it's almost like there's a pulsation. Because I was like, maybe it's the clouds or the aerosol stuff in between me and there. And but it seemed like no matter where I focused my attention, everything in that area was given this really almost imperceptible pulsing, just like a woo, woo, not real fast, but they were all doing it. So if I looked to the east and focused on a group of stars, they all seemed to be not great or whatever, but I was like, it wasn't just straight light coming in, like it wasn't just straight starlight. So I'm like, whoa. Now, in listening and checking in, the frequency of the earth is definitely changing. So what if it's not the stars that are doing woo woo, but the atmosphere is, and the energies of the earth are hitting the ionosphere, and that's making the stars look like they're pulsating. That's my feeling. But also what it sort of proves to me is that we are getting pulses and the earth is responding and it's doing this thing. And tonight it was really obvious. I mean, no matter where I looked up in the sky at the stars before I came to do this, I wanted to do it right away because then I'm going to go back outside after everything's kind of shifted positions and hopefully the dust has settled a little bit and take another look. And see if if it is true that there is a pulsation. Now, I have noticed it before, but it was just really brief. And tonight, it just seems like boom, 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 almost continuous. But then it seemed to like, well, all right, it quit. And then I turned around and focused over here, and I got a stiff neck still, but so I have to twist and turn and and look at another section of the sky. But then it would be like, all right, a minute or two would pass, and then the pulse would start again. Very imperceptibly, but it's there. Because the starlight, it'll twinkle, but it doesn't go twinkle, 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 not in and out kind of thing. So, but anyway. But I wanted to make this a quick video about where the position of everything is and the fact that we're in an interesting time in the month. The other thing about the North Star, thank you. I need to make this, as part of the deal. Always, 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 as a child, you're looking for constellations, how to find the North Star. If you find the Big Dipper, you always use the two bottom stars of the cup part, and you take this one, and line it up, and it pretty much points to the North Star. Now, over the years, I have literally taken a ruler out there and held it up, yardstick, and to see how close, because I'd never done it before, actually, to see how close the North Star was to these other 2 points of reference, right? Well, it was a little low. Not a big deal. I was like, yeah, well, just by eyeballing. Tonight, I checked, and I was carrying a rake when I was walking in the yard because I was raking. And anyway, so I've got a long-handled rake, and the handle's fairly straight, maybe a little curved, but not much. So I'm like, I'm just curious because it really looked like the Big Dipper was up here, and the Little Dipper was down here, the North Star. So, okay, I held up the rake handle, put it across the two. Oh my God, the North Star was this far below. So what I thought, I was like, that the sky is just playing tricks on me. Well, I have held up a straight edge and seen where the North Star was, and it was just below my straight edge. Now it's like way down here. holy crap, almost a hand. It was 3 fingers below the because that's my reference when I'm doing these things. If only we could see that North Star, right? Could always see. It hardly moves. You're saying I think it's our position, because if I go up the hill a little ways, where the North Star looks in relation is a little tweaked. That's why I always try to look at it from one spot with land-based things to look at, right? To check it. And that's why for curiosity's sake, I held up a straight edge. It's almost like where we are in space, how we look at the relationship to everything. It's not necessarily that they've moved, but we have moved. Our observation point of them has moved. It's like I've moved up the hill and then tried to view it from the same location. It looks off. Okay. Well, if the Earth has moved and the solar system is moving, that's just like given. Oh, we're in a new section. Yes, we are. And so if the solar system is moving as drastically as we are now picking up, then it would kind of stand to reason that if the whole solar system is moving along at 70,000 miles an hour or something like that, whatever they've calculated, then over time, some of these stars' relationship to us will have changed. It doesn't mean that they are, but where we spotted it 10 years ago, because we have moved, all right, then our location puts things a little bit more askew. Well, what I thought was just my point of view, when you hold up a straight edge, it just is like, well, there's your proof, Dave. There's your proof. I've mentioned in other videos, the reason my Indian name is called Hawkeye is because I could find things when nobody else could. And I've been gifted with that. I could spot things. When I worked on the carnival, it was Hawkeye, and because a lady lost a ring. I mean, it was like a $12,000 ring, and I found it and returned it to her. She was like, oh my God, it's a true story. But to the point though, that's why my name is Hawkeye. So also in the machining and mechanical engineering business, I was just able to spot the difference for some reason. Something just looks off. Then you get out the tools and you measure. Okay, well, that's what I do. Hello, Marie. Wait, okay, the moon is just a mystery to me too. Like the blueness of the atmosphere never affects the white bits of the moon. Sometimes it does, but well, they also say that the moon doesn't have an atmosphere. I disagree. But all the black bits turn blue in the daytime. It's just weird to me. Yeah. Well, there's so many different things in our atmosphere. I was watching, I think it was Mr. MBB 333, and he had one that somebody was taking. And I couldn't believe some of the comments either. It was like, oh, that's a lens flare. No, yes, there were lens flares. But what the gentleman was taking a picture was sun coming through the clouds in Chicago, and the complete array of colors. It looked like you were looking at a spectrograph. The greens, blues, yellows, reds. I mean, oh my gosh. You're not supposed to get those colors in clouds, because that means there are other metals and chemicals and things, because those are chemical signatures. The different colors of the spectrum are color signatures of the chemicals. Okay, that's how they do spectrographic analysis. They put it in, they light it up, and how does it glow? And they've got a chart, and there it is. They've got it down pat now. I mean, some people claim there's an app for it, and you can do it with the new cell phones. Okay, that's cool. But to the point though, so where are these things in relationship to us? Well, being 65 years old and living here for 44 years, my memory says this is what it looked like. But over those 44 years of living here in South Georgia, guess what? We've moved 70,000 miles an hour through per constantly through the galaxy, or, and so that as my observations appear to be the same, for some reason, it's gotten to the point now where we're at an oblique view. So it might be that it lines up this way, but now we've moved past that, and now it kind of looks off, even though the constellations haven't changed. However, if they're all moving at 70,000 miles an hour, then the whole business is spreading or moving or whatever. But our position, we still got a lot of cloud cover here, so I haven't seen the sky for a few days. Been cold too, yeah. Winter, I've been able to have a fire because it's so damp. Oh, dang. I know. I love my I got a wood stove. I wouldn't trade it in for nothing. They're talking like, oh man, you can't cut your own wood anymore, and you can't do this, and in a wood stove and fireplaces. And I'm like, just shoot me and get it over with, because I'm not giving up a wood stove. I'm sorry, it ain't happening. Just shoot me now and get it over with. So, but in looking at the grand scheme of things, and part of the instruction that I have been given lately, and it's been confusing, I'm not going to lie, that it being an architect, a mechanical engineer, I started with architect first, and then I moved to mechanical because everybody wanted to be an architect. And there were one job for 10 people. And back when I was doing it, there were 10 jobs for one mechanical drafter. That's how I became an engineer. I still already had all this mechanical background. Anyway, but to the point, though, you have to learn how to draw in perspective. Now, I learned how to draw on a drafting table. I still have it. I've got all my drafting equipment. I've got paper, all the different pencils, all the blah, 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 blah. So you had to be able to do a point here and a point here and then draw perspective. All right. So I'm thinking that this upgraded download that I got is, Dave, this is more proof, yes, that the earth is rolling, because where the North Star is way too high above the horizon. But now the fact that the Big Dipper, it doesn't line up with the Little Dipper the way it used to, that is a matter of perspective. But it shows that we are moving. It shows that things are changing. It is proof that we are moving, changing. It's proof. Where the other guys are like, oh yeah, everything's okay. Oh no, yeah. But they're not saying, some of these folks are like, I set up my telescope, and it's got a GPS kind of thing and blah, blah, blah. And then you set it to a coordinate and, hey, Milky Way. And that, in fact, I think a friend of mine has a really expensive, sure enough, that big around telescope, and it's got its own sidereal motor, I think is what it's called. I'm still having difficulty recalling things because of my accident. But anyway, when you turn it on and plug it in and point it, you don't have to move. It moves with whatever you're watching, okay? And it keeps up with it. And so within a couple of weeks, I may have that back here and be able to set it up. And there is software I can hook up to this machine, or maybe I need to get my other one out of the dust off the thing, but and be able to show what I see from here through the telescope, which would be really cool. But I digress. Observation of the constellations, though, and their relationship to our position. So if you've ever taken any kind of art class or anything like that, they always say draw in perspective, draw in perspective. You put a point here and you draw lines out. This is your horizon line and this is blah, blah, blah. Well, I think whatever's going on with the entire solar system is that our perspective point in the grand scheme of the picture is altered, which makes sense. You know, I mean, for 40 years of observation here, we've been traveling all this distance all that time. Now, I have no linear way of saying, well, you know, that's moved here and that's moved there. I can tell that the North Pole is further north. I can tell that the Big Dipper's over my head. I can tell that Mars, I can't see through this window tonight, and I did last night. Okay, what's going on? We're in a different part, and our perspective has changed. Now, the Earth is wobbling, but there's also that is the current thing of seeing the North Star going up and down and the planets moving back and forth and the moon seeming to be. But last night when I went out after I did a video with you, Marie, I went outside to check the moon and I thought it was going to be really low on the horizon. I couldn't find it. It was way up in the trees. I was like, holy crap, what's it doing up there? So to my point, where I expected it to be from my own personal observations, instead of being another 5 or 6 degrees further south of me, it was almost 10 degrees further north. And that's just been in like 3 days. Holy crap. So in a way, it makes sense, though. If we have rolled, then the North Pole is higher, then the moon is doing its thing, too. It's creepy. It's weird. But there's a lot of wobbling going on between all of these objects. Now, I still, going back to the observation of the North Pole and the Big Dipper, that is a positioning in the solar system. So our perspective on the paper has changed. As what is it, Doc Crazy? He's that crazy hippie physicist. I can never remember his name. And he's tripped as many times as I have, because there are times when I exactly understand what he's talking about, and I don't think anybody else does. Oh, yeah. I love him. And his point of view, and I understand how he can go. He's going down a line, and then all of a sudden, it's like, but there's this thing right here, and instead of continuing the conversation, it's like, but this is really important, and you get stuck here. It happens to a lot of us, and I apologize myself. Okay, I think now it's safe to say so-called ascension ain't exactly like some people were saying, certainly at least 20 years ago, and probably before that. Everything goes so slow, even as time flies. Yeah, but we're in a different, that's my point, though. I remember how it felt then, and I can feel the adjustments going on now. That's the walking in the dark, or the dream world, or whatever. And so, because after I got off the air with this last night, early this morning, I went into meditation and said, okay, explain this crap to me, because I'm a little confused. You know what I'm saying? So the positive things that I got back were, it's like, okay, one of them was, it's a matter of perspective. So in my time world, when they changed the clock to Eastern Daylight Time, I refused to change my clock back here on the wall. I said, pooh, I'm creating my own Dave experiment here in my house on my little piece of property on this earth. My time is still Eastern time, not daylight. My time says it's 20 minutes to 12, and it's 12:35 by the computer. So people, you're nuts, Dave. Why are you doing it? It has to do with a time shift. Everybody else's consciousness has to live in that other realm. I don't. I live by myself. I'm down in the country. You know, my clock is my clock. If it says 20 to 12 on my clock, that's here in my realm. That's my time. I don't have to compare it to anybody else's. I have friends in Central Time Zone. I got folks on the West Coast. So what time is it there? It doesn't matter what time it is on my clock. It matters what time it is in their world. I know it's creepy. And I've just started this because I was looking at time from a totally really obscure. I mean, I'm not going to set my clock. So what the hell does that mean? I'm not setting my clock. I'm not setting it ahead. I refuse. Because for some reason, it was like, if I accepted their reality to change my clock in my world, that my world doesn't really interact much with other folks till I get online or something. It is 420. It's always 420, but that's another story. But so my clock, I'm not going to change my clock. In my world, this is what time it is. Now, what does that mean? Am I in the time warp or is everybody else? Everybody else was made to jump ahead, spring ahead. No, not me. This is my time. Okay. Yeah, when I go to town, I have to, add an hour and go, oh, it's 2 o'clock my time. No, it's 3 o'clock their time. I know, crazy. I didn't want to get pulled out of my spot. I didn't want, even my house phone, and it's connected to this connection on the internet that I'm looking at you right now comes through my phone line. It's a DSL special, blah, 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 with a booster thing and whatever. Okay, fine, because I live way out here in the country. But my house phone is a radio phone with a base. It's digital. It's hooked up to the same line and to the same company who gives me this service. The time on my phone is the same time on my clock. It didn't change time. The clock on this computer says 12:38. The clock on my phone is 11:38. And they're both hooked up to the same digital time signal. Explain that one. So in my little time warp experiment, and I don't know what to compare it to, except that there are weird things that happen sort of outside of this, and okay. But in a way, I decided personally not to be included in this last time jump forward. I don't know why. It was a conscious thing. I'm sorry, y'all go ahead and jump ahead because you got to be at work on time and all this other kind of stuff. But my time is still set to this clock. I didn't push it forward. Now, the odd thing that the other clock didn't jump forward with this on the computer, that's got me baffled. That's got me baffled. And I have set the time ahead and go to sleep and wake up, and it will lose the hour and go back to the same time to the clock on the wall, which is just a battery-powered $5 clock, okay? Nothing fancy. So I'm like, So what has this to do with the entire scheme of things? In my opinion, if little quirky, weird things like my house phone not having the same time as this, but it has the same time as the clock that I refuse to change, am I affecting by my refusal to accept it? Have I changed? Am I in a time bubble? Did I create my own time space continuum here? You know what I'm saying? I mean, in a way, I just said, I'm not going to do it. That was all. I didn't have any great experiment in it. But as I decided not to change my clock, which I've been almost tempted to, I decided, no, there's a reason why. And it was a higher self thing, because it's an observation. Time is relative to where you are. I used to travel around a lot and go to Tennessee in the central time zone, right? Love Tennessee. I love Tennessee. Oh my goodness, I miss Tennessee. But at the same time, when I'm in Tennessee, I'm in central time zone. And most of the places I was at in the central time zone, especially in the wintertime when I traveled up there, usually. So at 4:30, it's dark, where it's 5:30 or 6, it's getting dark at 4:30. And so how these people live on the edge of the time zone, okay? Because if you go 20 miles east, it's going to be 5:30, and the daylight thing is starting to get dark in the wintertime, looks normal. You go 20 miles west, cross that time zone, okay? It's still the same time over there you just left, but when you crossed over the river, all of a sudden now it's 4:30. And in my way of thinking, 4:30 is like, I still got an hour and a half before it's pitch dark. No, at 5 o'clock, it's pitch dark in their world because they're on the edge of that time zone. Now, as you travel all the way to the west of that time zone, it happens again on the leading edge of that time zone. So it's like that set in motion years ago. Time is kind of strange in how we view it and everything, but it also, somebody blocked it out. Somebody said, okay, it's now this time here and it's going to take this, it's this time here, and they chunked it off. Okay, fine. But it's still relative to your position. Go 20 miles that way, it's 5:30. Go back home, it's 4:30. It's dark at 4:30, still light over there. Same universe, same planet, same place, just a space of 20 miles. Now, I still get a kick out of it because they're up around Chattanooga on the interstate. You go into Alabama, change time zones, and then you come back out, and then you are back in Eastern time zone. So it would change for 15 minutes while you drove through that section of upper Alabama, Tennessee thing. Weird. But about what time is it? Well, it's an hour different. Well, if you get off the interstate anywhere during that little loop there, you get out, it's an hour earlier. Strange. Fun, but strange. So with that, though, that has prompted me to do some of these other like little personal studies, like a corkscrew. Wait, my dad is always remarking about how time accelerates for us as we age. He's 76. Well, I'm 65. And there are times when the day goes by and you go, come on now, that was 8 hours. It seems like 4. I mean, it's almost like, boom. Now, but has our reality sped up and time has stayed the same? It never sets in the horizon. It's in a fixed position in the sky. It does a full 360, 24-hour compared to planets and other constellations in the sky, which I watch go from an east to west rotation. Yep, like a corkscrew. It is a corkscrew. That's exactly right. And I can't remember who it was the other day that was explaining this. It might have been on R. Wayne. I'm not sure. But it was, and you know, where the sun is and where the planets are is not a straight line. It is a ever expanding corkscrew away from it. And the sun is a comet and we're trailing behind it. And I got to point out a fallacy here, and it's something I'm not going to say their name, but it's a popular look at the sun show on YouTube. And they were all saying, oh, look, it's the transition of Mercury across the sun. Get this. I have watched with a telescope Mercury transition the sun. They showed this on a video from the satellite. The sun's this big and the object was this big. Okay. Now, when I look through it in my telescope, since starting in the 70s and all the way through, I've had little 3.5-inch telescopes. I've with a moon filter and a sun filter and everything. And I've watched this pin dot, a dot, go across the face of Mercury. I mean, it being Mercury, make the transition across the sun. And they're trying to say this humongous object that's bigger than the Earth is Mercury transitioning the sun. Bull hockey. Bull hockey. And this was yesterday. I'm suspicious of some of these observers, if you catch my drift. That ain't no more Mercury than the man in the moon. And for somebody to try to spout that lie, you don't know what you're talking about. Go outside. I mean, I used to get Sky and Telescope back in the day. They still have the magazine. And I used to find out where are the planets, where is this and that and the other thing. And they would give you a time, and it's going to transition and everything and blah, 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 blah. They still do things like that, right? And so you can go outside and observe this yourself. It's a pin dot. It's a little tiny little black spot that goes across the surface, that goes across the face of the thing. It's not above the sun, as this particular video showed. It's in the middle because it's so close to the sun. It's close to the equator and the ecliptical. All right. So it goes almost directly across the center of the sun when you watch it pass. This banana mess that they showed on this other show, and his claim now, to the point, he must not have ever watched Mercury transit the sun like I have in real time with a telescope. He's just spouting what the other guys are saying it is. No, it's not. It's a huge object, and it was moving way too fast to be a transit. And here's the sun, here's the object, and the object is bigger than Jupiter. Twice as big as Jupiter would be my opinion. And it's supposed to be Mercury. Mercury is small. I mean, think Pluto, you know? And that was yesterday or today. I mean, you know, they are not telling us what's going on. It's right. Oh, let me try not to let that get under my skin, because when I saw it, I'm thinking, you know, he has a lot of followers, and his information on the sun and certain things, I gotta say, really good. I'm not mentioning any names. I've already said my piece, but here's the point. To go along with a farce, a facade, a faux universe, I don't know if he just is stupid, like a lot of other folks are. I mean, you know, I'll mention Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's an idiot. And Bill Nye, the puking guy, if anybody ever listens to that man, they should just go into an insane asylum and have them take shock treatment, because they're going to have to go through a lot of detox to get rid of Bill Nye and the lies that Neil deGrasse Tyson are still promoting. Oh my God, it's a sin. It really is. These two guys should go to hell for what they've done. I'm sorry. I'm trying not to judge, but when you spout off after everybody's been talking about it now for many years now, that the speed of light isn't constant. And I recently saw a piece where he said, the speed of light is a constant thing, and we in the universe. And I was like, you son of a gun. You son of a gun. In 2018, you're still telling the children and folks the speed of light is constant when everybody else. It's shameful, 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 shameful. But see, they don't know how to back up. They don't know how to go, well, you know, 100 years ago, Einstein came up with this. And actually, this is a theory that's 100 years old. And we've been flipping lying to you since the 1920s about the speed of light. And in 2 years, it's going to be 100 years we've been lying to you. And, well, we just haven't been able to figure out how the best way to tell you that we've been lying about this. So rather than admit we were wrong or something else, because if we tell you it's an average, then everybody's going to go, well, what's the max and what's the min then? And what went this? It'll ask too many questions that we don't want to have to answer, because then we'd have to actually earn our money and give real education and tell the truth. You know, I listen and watch a lot of disclosure things. Let me go back up to this. Time spans to insects, bugs, they might have a life which is like suspended animation, slowed down, where they process thought 1 trillion times faster than a computer can calculate. Absolutely, they can. And how there was something about, and I can't remember, it was a nature program or something, but it was many years ago, and it was a really interesting point of view. Now, we can't do this, but an ant can, as you bring it up. Now, think about this. We stand on the earth and we walk upright, and we're in 2 dimensions, you know, 3 dimensions, up, down, this way, this way. An ant can crawl upside down. So he can walk on top of the tree limb. He can crawl on the side of the tree limb. He can go underneath and crawl underneath the tree limb. He doesn't care. Now, is it because he's got little fuzzy thingies on his feet that he doesn't fall off? Or is his little ant mind and his vibration such that he doesn't care whether he's upside down or not? His reality is 360, where ours is just, okay, that's down. What's down to an ant when he's upside down on a tree? The limb. It's a matter of perspective. And I've thought about this over the years as I watch nature, as my thing. And I think to myself, the ant don't know he's upside down. He don't have a clue. Neither does the roach that's crawling on the ceiling of the shed. I mean, they don't know. They're just walking on a surface. But that surface at the time happens to be sideways. Like, how come them buggers just don't fall off? What are they clinging to? Okay. And it's not just a roach or an ant, but I mean, bugs, things in general. So to your point, Miss Marie, that's their reality and that's their observation. That's their little time bubble. Sort of like I have created this as an experiment. I'm in my own Eastern Standard Time bubble in my little house here. But to the ant or another bug, he's in his time zone. And in his time zone, he can, or reality or dimension, however you want to look at it, he can walk upside down on a tree limb because it doesn't matter to him. That's his reality. And if we even begin to think of crawling upside down, the first thing we do is go, oh, crap, I can't do this, plop. Maybe we can walk upside down, but because we've lost our intuition to adapt to that other way of thought. Can we really walk upside down? There are some people who I think can. And there are instances of people who have, quote, been possessed, of clinging to walls and hanging from ceilings. And Jackie Chan's done some astounding acrobatics just in the fact that he had the physical capability, but he also had it in his mind that he knew he could do it. Now, he missed a few times, miscalculated, blah, blah, blah. But to the point, though, to see here, and any of these people do this house jumping thing for fun, I understand it because there used to be things that I did when I was in the swamp and going through and things. I was like a monkey in so many ways. That was my reality. As I've gotten older, I don't climb the way I used to. I can't jump the way I used to. I mean, so I asked someone one day, we were just discussing getting old. And I said, do you remember running and jumping when you were a kid? Yeah. When was the last time you jumped? What do you mean? I said, when was the last time you jumped? I mean, just hop, jump. When was the last time you jumped? Well, what does that matter? And I said, I can't remember when the last time I jumped was. And I'm work around the farm and stuff, and I'm, but I can't remember the last time I just like jumped over a log or a stream or water or something. I can't remember the last time I jumped. And then it came to me and I said, as a second thought to that, as old age or whatever, when did I forget how to jump? Because I went outside and said, okay, jump. And I was like, you got to be kidding. I can't jump. And so it's sort of a joke, but I'm teaching myself how to jump again. Just simply, not anything fancy, just to jump, okay? Hop up and down, right? When did I forget? How did I forget? What time frame, what world was I in when jumping became obsolete? Now, that's in my reality, not someone else's. But to the point, other people are going, I don't know. Maybe it's just that life and things, and I don't go in the woods. There's no water for me to jump over anymore in my swamp, where I used to jump over the puddle, jump over this puddle, there's no water. So now I just walk. So now, is that part of the condition that the property's in, and the land and the planet? But that helped me to forget how to jump. Just an observation. But at 65, I'm teaching myself to jump again. As dumb as that shit might sound, I'm teaching myself to jump again, because somehow there's a disconnect in my brain and how things should function in myself. And personally, even though I'm not going to become a hurdler or a getter or anything like that. I used to run track, blah, 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 but I'm not, it's not that. I want to know how to jump again, period. If it ain't just a jump, hop up and down 4 or 5 times on the floor. I couldn't do it a month. Well, it's been a couple of months ago, but I couldn't get my muscles to do any of it. And it was freaking me out there for a little bit. And then I realized that was the condition of all the pain and all that 3-year nasty period of drugs and, not mine, theirs, what they did to me. But, and that in all of that transition, in the walking on the river with spirits, and the spirit walks into the other side, they don't jump on the other side. I mean, as a thing. So about the time that I felt a walk-in type situation happen on the river is about the same time I forgot how to jump. A correlation. Oh, because I could literally go back in time, because I mean, back then when I had the dog and we were doing, I would run with the dog and we were doing, and I was jumping. So, but since the time on the river of the possible walk-in, my walk-in didn't know how to jump, of all the dumb damn things. And I mean, now it's like, as I mentioned last night, that it feels like the walk-in it's almost like a partial here, connected, like the message from the gas pump. You've got an open mind and a clear, I've got it written right there, it's a constant reminder, open mind and a clear connection with spirit. And so now I'm trying to help connect the dots. So last night, after having the discussion of what really went on during that time, was there a walk-in? Was there a this? What was shown? What was taught? Blah, blah, blah. And what I was shown is that things are changing. And I was told to go outside tonight, look at the sky, and then it was dropped in that it's your point of observation. So whether it be an ant under a limb or someone observing it from over yonder or back yonder that way, doesn't matter. We all have a point of reference. Now, what's interesting is though right now, all these points of reference are going to merge. I think that's part of what this timeline is. Marie, your timeline and what you see and how you watch things going, they're not necessarily going to change per se, but they will coincide with the fact that I'm seeing what I should see on my end of the world in relationship to what you're seeing. But when I listen to folks, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. I mean, your observations are from your point of view. And I also think that could also be connected to a particular timeline. So say, for example, Australia's in Australia timeline, not chopped up time-wise, clockwise, but Australia's in its own timeline. And there are little things that it talks with everybody else, but Australia is in its own timeline. Me here in Georgia, this South Georgia, was seeing people disappear. And then all of a sudden, and I'm not being racist, I don't know how else to say this, but all the white people disappeared and they were replaced by Mexicans. I mean, I don't know. And where are they living? I'm not that I care. That's not my point. Is like, when did they get here? And where are all the other white folk I used to know? I mean, I used to bump into people that I knew all the time. Okay, I'm getting older. That's not the point. I don't recognize anybody anywhere, any stores that I go in. I don't bump into anyone except maybe the cashier, which is in itself like, I knew a lot of people. I used to do puppets and I did theater here in these communities, and I didn't know everybody by name, but I met a lot of people, and and like nobody's familiar. And where did all the Mexicans come from? Holy mackerel! It's like, so my timeline, my time zone, when I step off of my property and that clock time, I'm going into someone else's reality. And I have to go visit, and I have to play by their rules in that timeline. I know this is just happening. This has only been since March that I'm in this like, So I'm divulging things as I'm understanding and looking. But the whole point of this is that we've been stuck with a paradigm of this is how it is. This is time. And, but my point about, the folks that live on the edge of a time zone, it's 4:30 versus 5:30, dark, still light. Okay. That is a perception of reality. So that time zone could also be a time construct. Central time zone. So everybody in central time zone acts this way. And it is kind of weird because as I've traveled across the United States and back, when you cross through the time zones, people are acting different. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I mean, out in Wyoming and Montana, and that what would be mountain time zone, the people there were just so much different than people on either side of that time zone. See, I said timeline. But what if it is a timeline? What if mountain time is its own construct and is its own timeline? Because if you go this way or that and cross the line, you're in another zone. Okay, then is that another construct? And because I've noticed that if I did a puppet show for they would pay me to come in to just do 1 or 2 shows, and I just spent the night and then I was going back into my time zone, I wouldn't change my clock. But if I was going to be there for the weekend or something for several days, I changed my clock in my truck so I could be in their time zone. And then, but just before I would leave their time zone, I would set the clock back to my time zone. Okay. That's what you get for traveling back and forth. Okay. But in that, I would realize, even though it says 4:30 and I've been in the central time zone for 2 days, it still only feels like, it feels like 5:30 to me. My body still retained Eastern time when I was in the middle of Central time. So, and I'm, sort of like a jet lag kind of deal. All right. Why am I saying this? Because I think all of this is related. How I observe, how we observe. I mean, I'm sure that it's the planet's observation of the celestial things that has changed, not mine. Where the moon comes up and where the things are, that could be directly related to our position on the earth. Directly. I used to do a lot of voices directly. But which is something else that is interesting. During my convalescence, when they did the flashing lights to me and gave me full-blown seizures, I have 150 puppets. 90 to 100 of them all have their own voices and characters and back history. All of that information, I could hear voices and I would speak in their character as joking or something or whatever, or practicing. For 3 years, I haven't heard a voice. And it's only been in the last 2 months that I've started hearing what the puppet voices. I mean, I created them. I mean, but to the point though, they were so in there, I could switch from voice to voice to voice to voice, and people were simply it amazed me. But I could go. That was just one of my talents, right? And so, I was going to talk like this to go. Okay, Joe. What? All right, now you cut that out. I know when I cut it out. All right, now I'm going to punch in that. You know, this is how I did puppets, and I did all the characters mostly. And I did them live. I couldn't do it recorded. It never did work for me. Sometimes. But the voices are coming back. My vocal cords, the attachment, how I could change my vocal cords to do the voice I asked or was thinking of that used to just be natural was gone. So that time frame, that time construct. But I also feel like I was snatched out of my time zone. Same time the walk-in came, I'm saying, I lost those voices. I forgot how to jump. There are several things that I forgot how to do. And it was almost like whoever came off the river, I mean, I still knew how to paddle. I still knew how to drive, but there were other things that were really clumsy. And I didn't necessarily am so much a clumsy person per se. I mean, I have my moments, but usually I was drunk or something when I did it. But anyway, which I don't drink anymore. But so yes, like a minor bird, I would even be able to keep up with myself. People would literally, I mean, I'm not bragging because it was the gift that I was able to channel through me to do the puppets. I could be standing in a freezer and I'd be sweating because of the information I was channeling while doing puppets. And it would take me an hour to 2 hours to cool down physically. I mean, I was sweat drenched, everything. I mean, you know, there were several times I was looking over the top and sweat be dripping off my nose, and it'd be 65 in the room. And I'm, you know, but anyway, that's so my construct of what time and space and this, I've had all these other things to like, oh, that's interesting. What about that? So now it's time to start pulling things together and go, I was shown these things for some dumbass reason, you know, and by golly, I'm going to try to figure out what the heck this is. You know, hippie down here in the woods, you know, what are you doing down there looking up at them stars and trying to tell folks what you know? Damn, man, I even have a sling blade in the shed. Hell. So being able to do character voices and characters was, I've been in 85 different stage productions. I'm not bragging, it's just fact. And I was lauded, applauded for my ability to do other characters. I lost all that during the walk-in time. So you're saying you might be the walk-in yourself, having maybe integrated so much of your or your person's memory whose body you walked into. Doesn't sound implausible to me. I'm saying that the walk-in came in to support me during that horrible time of the chemical reactions and the physical things that was going on. He came in sort of as a dummy and just kind of held me up. But when it entered, and I can physically see it in my head now, I was standing in a room and there are doors not quite all the way around me. And some of them are cracked a little bit and I can see things under them. There's nothing on the doors, but my feeling says the puppets are behind one of these doors. All the puppet voices, all that's behind one of them doors. All my mechanic skills, they're behind one of those doors. All my skills as an electrician, they're over here behind one of these doors. But I don't know what door, and there's no clue. And I'm standing here in the middle, and I'm even having troubles taking a tiny little baby step towards any one of those doors. I even discussed this with my doctor of 20 years and said, Doc, this is the strangest damn feeling. I don't know what's going on. I don't know where they are. I feel like myself, sort of. I don't feel like I've been, quote, possessed by, I wasn't doing anything bad, nasty, or anything like that. I didn't start raping children and, you know, become a drunk. No, nothing of that. If anything, David, Hawkeye, was put on almost in a, oh, this is a strange thought. Hyperbaric chamber comes to mind. I don't know why. I don't know where that came from. Hyperbaric chamber. Almost in a semi-stasis. So that whatever had gone on in my brain, this other entity, and it could be just my spirit guide, that stepped in, because my particular life, I wasn't trying to kill myself or anything like that, although I had issues up to that point with just wanting to die all the time. So, but then when I had my, I was given my Indian name and christened and went through the sweat lodge and everything, all that kind of fear went away then. But that was 2 years before the walk-in incident on the river. So, but still in line with everything, because had I not had the sweat lodge and that christening by a shaman medicine man in a private ceremony, I don't think I would have gotten the walk-in, because I had to make a certain spiritual connection for that to allow to happen. For a period of time, I see they came and went, and perhaps they still hang around and you channel them without even knowing it sometimes. I mean, it's entirely plausible. Look, my spirit guide's right here. You know, sometimes he steps away, whatever, you know, I'm out gardening, but, you know, then there are times when that hand does not leave my shoulder. And it's a very light, but very nice, warm, comfortable, never asked me to do a nasty thing ever, ever, ever. In fact, if anything, this is the one, if you listen to the story about me going into town for no reason at all, and then on the way home, me and my friend Tim came upon that accident, and we saved that man's life and his leg and all that, you know, that was the hand on my shoulder. What makes me do some of these weird things that I do, I don't know, but none of them have ever put anyone else in danger. And if anything, I have saved people's lives, you know, unexpectedly. I didn't know that that was what I was supposed to do that night, was to save that. We didn't save his leg, but we saved him from losing any more of his leg, and we saved him from dying. But to the point, they weren't able to do anything with the leg. It had been too long, but and it was too mangled. But to your point, Tinfoil, this entity has been my guardian angel since I was a child, growing up as a Catholic. So I've got my guardian angels always here. So you can, I feel the presence. So when some folks say they're channeling, I don't really call it channeling. It's more like I'm just listening to advice. It's not a different entity. It's the same angel that's been with me always. All right. Now, this could be simply an extension of my true self who is here. Okay. But before the walk-in incident, I was kind of feeling a little bit abandoned at the time. Before the incident on the river, there was like, coming out of this, all these folks ripped me off, and now I'm by myself. Nobody wants to have a damn thing to do with me, and blah, 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 blah. Woe is me kind of an issue, but I really did need some help, you know, when you get right down to it. But me being the prideful person I was, you know, I'm not going to call somebody over to ask them to please help me clean my house because it got too far and I can't keep up, and it got too much, and it was, you know, it wasn't me. It was all these other 7 people living in my house, and they left it like this, and I don't know how to deal with it. I'm still having those issues, but that's another story. I am dealing with it. But to the point, then it was freaking me out, and I really needed some help. So when this walk-in incident happened, I hadn't done another puppet show. I hadn't spoken to about puppets. I haven't picked up a puppet. And I used to just go, they're hanging all over my house, literally. You know, I'd go grab one and just do a little thing and whatever would fit me. And I lost whatever entity that was the happy one that wanted to do just, farcical, ha ha ha, make folks laugh and pee their pants and, okay, gone, stepped out. But I think as I'm saying this, and I've been looking at this since the time change thing, and okay, what's this meaning? As my veil's being lifted, as everyone else's veil is being lifted, as I'm walking, on the 3D side to the whatever side this is, and crossing back and forth over the fence a lot here lately, and seeing it and other people having the same reaction, crossing into the other world, dreamland. I like to call it dream walking. It fits really nice, dream walking. And so in my dream walks, these things are taught, shown. But as far as me channeling something, now there has been, and I spoke about this before, and I didn't realize it until last night, actually, that entity being that I met in Ohio, that is an ET being, I hear on this side. For some reason, it's on this side. And it's not like I get they stay in touch with me all the time, but there are like, okay, just want to let you know I'm still here. We're still here. We love you, blah, blah, blah. And, oh, by the way, go outside. There'll be something you'll see in the next few minutes. And it always happens. But then that's about all it is. Or that this voice over here is like, stay calm. You're going to hear some trash, blah, blah, blah. Now, this side is always, Dave, that if I start to sway and maybe my opinion is going off track, I'll get this little tap and it'll go, hang on. That's a possibility, but you're leaning a little too far that way. Come back to center more. You're going off track. Come back. It's okay to look over there, but that's really not where you're going or what you need to say or to speak, if that makes sense. Let me go back to this. I advise people never to talk to doctors anymore than you talk to the police or the feds. Yeah. Now, I've known my doctor. I got busted, then she got busted. Oh, my God. It was so weird. At the local, she didn't do anything wrong. They set her up, but that's beyond there. But she lost her license for 2 years. And and during that is when I was having my crisis with meds. So she was practicing medicine and they yanked her license so she couldn't treat me any longer. And because they yanked her license, no other doctor would treat me because I was her patient and she had been busted, which started a big chain reaction for 2 years. She has her license back and things, but oh my God, that was part of the whole karmic thing. So when I speak to my doctor, she's my friend. When she knew I was down and out, she pulled $100 bill out of her jeans pocket and handed it to me and said, pay your electric bill, Dave. And I'm like, but doc, I'm supposed to pay you. Shut up, you asshole. Take this $100 and go pay your electric bill and calm down. That's the kind of person she is. And she's like that to a lot of people, but not to fakes. But anyway, so my doctor is my doctor, but she still, quote, practices medicine. And in a way, I've been one of her guinea pigs. However, she's open to other things, but she's not able to open up like she would or could because of the doctor's rules and the fact that they're looking over her shoulder now. So when she started getting into more holistic type of things and they yanked her license, what she should have done was just went holistic then. But she wanted her license back to practice medicine. And so they had, she was on a 2-year strict probation. I mean, they were coming in like every other day, checking her records and this and that and calling patients. Unbelievable crap. And so that is part of why my history and why my physical condition and mental and all this went haywire for so long. But that's when the walk-in took place. And I think that it was just basically a frame to hold me up so the rest of me could heal. Now, I didn't do a lot, but now I'm walking now where I was in a wheelchair. I don't drool and have seizures like I used to. I haven't had a seizure, knock on wood, in a while. The things that were plaguing me, I still have a bad back, and that's okay. But like I was talking about my neck, I have more range of motion in my neck than I should have. Same thing with my left knee, broken in playing football, Tampa Catholic High School in 1967. I can walk now, my knee don't hurt. I'm not limping like I was. So things have changed physically for me. And also my mental clarity is coming back. I'm starting to hear the puppets that I did. I'm starting to get the creativity back. I've got 5 guitars. I've got a little drum set. I've got all harmonicas of all different sizes, shapes, and pitches. I've got a mandolin. I had a fiddle. I've got 2 bass guitars, several amps. We used to play music. Folks used to come out here and we'd play just for hours and hours and hours and hours. Haven't played music in 4 years. Haven't touched it. Now I'm sure my fingers would hurt if I played, but to the point, I lost the urge. And I used to sit down and just flunk out a tune just for the hell of it if it wasn't for 5 minutes. I hadn't touched a guitar. Haven't touched an instrument. I've got 4 different Native American beautiful flutes. Haven't picked one up. It didn't seem like it was time or right. I don't know. I'm still figuring that one out. But my point to this, though, as this transition of me, and I feel it's like the more I'm more positive, and as the vibrations are happening, the walk-in is just saying, okay, I'm letting you have you back, because it was only my job to step in for a short term. It didn't take over. Well, yes, it did. Yes. No, that's a lie. It did. It took over. Because how else would I have lost all of these things? I mean, I forgot how to change a tire, and I'm a mechanic. I couldn't figure out how to open the hood on my truck that I've had for 20 years. And I mean, literally 20 years this year. It's a 98. So how did I lose that instantly? Unless it was a walk-in, unless something else happened. Oh, salvia. Oh, man. If I think that's what that is, holy crap. I'm going back up in here. Now, tinfoil, I agree with this coming in and out, and perhaps they still hang around and you channel them without even knowing it. No, I do know it. I can feel it. I can feel it. There is just like, there's, you know, there were things that back in the day to learn how to use your psychic energy. And one of the things was, okay, what you need to do, if you want to see if you have psychic energy, is go to a theater or go someplace where there are people, and with somebody's back to you, look at the back of their head and think, turn around and smile at me. Turn around and smile. Turn around and smile. Nothing mean, nasty, or whatever. And I got really good at it. No matter who I looked at would turn right around, look dead at me, and smile, and then go, who are you? And then turn back around like, what's going on? You know, some people would turn around and go like, what, you know, what are you doing? You know, you're trying to get in my head or something, you know? And there were other people would turn around and go, I heard you. I heard you. I heard you tell me to turn around and smile at you. And I go, oh, you know, I'm sorry. You just look like an interesting person, and I wanted to smile back at you, you know, which was true. You know, I had no ill intent. But the thing is as I, quote, practiced that and saw how that could affect other people, I realized that I have an innate energy / power with influence other folks. If it's nothing more than to think, hey, turn around and smile, you know? So when I do things, I know that there is an external force power thingy, and I must be very damn careful. because I refuse to use it for the negative. That's as far as that goes. Once I smoked some salvia divinorum leaves, and I got the strangest experience in the world with no teeny bit of teeny ant so-called space. I think I smoked some of that one time too, and I said I'd never smoke it again. That was weird, crazy, and I've done acid, peyote, mescaline, mushrooms, Evoltin. That if we ever heal for some wounds, physical and otherwise, is miraculous enough, but it would have been impossible in some cases, clearly. Yep. In my healing from myself, I had decided that I was going to heal myself. I mean, okay, if I die in the process, what have I lost? I know that's dumb, but to the point. If I try to heal myself, I wish to heal myself, my intent is to heal myself, and then I consequently get better, what the heck is wrong with that, you know? Do I deserve to feel better? Do I deserve to heal? Well, that's up to somebody else's choice. My choice is that I want to be able to do things and help other people. If I'm crippled and can't do for myself, then how can I help another person? That is really my incentive. I want to go be able to help little old ladies who can't help themselves. And I used to, and I can't now, and I miss it. And I want to go back. I want to go back to physically helping people. But what I've been told now is to do these videos and to talk with people and try to explain whatever has happened in my life. How does it relate to your life? You know, yes, Marie. In fact, some folks were talking about it this evening. I think it was Jeff Doherty and company. And they were discussing that in order to find the light, that you were going to have to go back, you were going to have to go into the dark in order to, whatever you may call it, ascend, rapture, whatever. Wait, let me take that back. I do believe in ascension, but not as people understand it. If you go from a third dimension being to a fourth dimension being, isn't that an ascension of type? Yeah. But is it ascending like I'm an ascended master and I can fly to? No, that's not what but see, I can understand what ascension means in my time slot, you know, and it makes sense to me. Yeah. And you know what? At the same time, I can believe that what I'm going to feel and what I'm going to see, and as the veil is being lifted and I see some of these other things that are absolutely marvelously wonderful and new and exciting, that in itself could be a rapturous type feeling, but not that, you know, off I go. Now, there are some of the galactics that said 4 or 5 years ago, and now some of them are repeating some of the same stuff. And I'm like, well, that we may be literally transformed to another planet Earth. And in that transfer, that's why when Drake says, look at the sky, you know, does it look weird to you? Well, that's because you may be on Earth 2, not Earth 1. So when I see the Big Dipper overhead, I'm curious in my head, which planet am I really on? Am I on 1 or 2? Or is this BS? Or is the Earth wobbling out of its boundaries, you know? So there are all these things to consider, especially when I have the information that I do. So I just have to open up and consider it. So when listening to some of these other folks about going into the darkness, I remember, and it was interestingly, and you brought it up. So this is 3 times a day. And I said, if it got brought up the 3rd time, then I was going to speak on it. So here I am, I guess. All right. Yeah. I'll listen. In doing the training as a shaman, you are expected to go and see your own demons. And in a way, if you think of in the movies or something where the guy goes, the young native brave goes off on a spiritual walk, or in Australia, go on a walkabout, you know, because in that is what you're going to get your spiritual vision. You're going to see those things. And so I'd already seen a lot of stuff and was pretty close, but I hadn't had like the finer touches of the ceremony. And it's nothing more than being respectful, and that like negative things come out of your left hand. And if you want to give them back, you know, left hand bad, right hand good energy. So if somebody lays their left hand on you and wants to heal you, back off, because that's, now it might be okay for them, but if they lead with their left, maybe they're left-handed and their energy could be there. But normally, especially in old traditions, it's the right hand. The right hand, I'm sitting at the right hand of God, if you will. Okay. But the right hand has, quote, the good energy healing power, more so than the left. The left hand is to get rid of the negative energy. It's to channel, push in the good and throw out the bad, you know? So, so there were little things like that I didn't know left or right, which was good or bad. And so it was just little minute details in my training as a shaman to understand what this meant, because I could go up to somebody and lay my left hand on them, not knowing the difference, left hand, right hand, blah, blah, blah. I could actually shoot them with negative energy unbeknownst, because I'm not trained, qualified, whatever. However, I had already learned that my right hand was stronger, and it seemed like the right hand was the hand to touch. And before I understood it, I was already shedding negative energy with my left hand. So there was a natural thing to this, that when the medicine man shaman was training me on a one-to-one, and I showed him what I already knew, he flipped out. He said, David, excuse me, I'm going to use what he said. He said, how the fuck did you learn that? He goes, this is inside information. It's not really secret, but how do you know that? How did you learn? How do you know that? My spirit guide. And he'd fold his hands and look like this, and he'd go, damn, son. When he said, you know, I knew there was something different about you, but damn, son, you know, and there was one, as he was showing me the ceremony, and we were in my woods in the back, and we had spent several weeks clearing a spot, energy wise, spirit wise, underbrush wise, so that we could do a fire, so we could consecrate it. We carried rocks from miles away so that we could set them out in just the right north, south, east, and west, so we could make an entrance to the circle, and important that, you know, make sure that it was poured in the right direction and so forth. Location to the river back there where this particular circle is. So all of this was calculated. All this was, we both spent hours and days praying and meditating, and this, and what ended up was with what we had. So as we were going further into this, as I was learning and observing him and learning the tweaking points, he came to me and he said, okay, now that we've got this, he said, I can dedicate it, the circle and this area, but it's your land, and I'm not going to always be here. But you know, you're going to be here. And so you actually need to do the final ceremony. It's like a christening. Okay. And he said, but you got to do it by yourself. You got to do it down here. And, you know, look out for this, and this. Because if you he said, from what I've already seen, not much is going to be a surprise to you, meaning spirit world things. However, he said, beware of those we do not speak of. Then I looked at him and I said, what? He said, I have to tell you, but I'm not supposed to tell you, but I have to tell you. And I was like, okay. And I understand now what he meant then. Now, I'm especially after he told me, because everybody else is like, if you speak of them, then that gives them the power. And even if you put too much thought into what they are, you can give them power and energy. And if you're doing a cleansing and a christening type event, then you don't want these entities to come into your spot and become part of the ceremony and then get stuck in the ceremony. And then your ceremony in this area then is tainted with really negative, bad crap. Oh, why didn't you tell me this before? I asked him. He said, because I couldn't speak until you were ready. I mean, he's getting ready to walk out the woods and I'm fixing to do this ceremony for 2 days straight in the woods. And I'm going, holy crap, what is this? And he said, look. And he had part of his regalia. And he held up a thing and he said, eyes. He wouldn't speak. Eyes. Well, I knew what he meant. Red colored eyes. Okay. Of those we must not speak of. He said they're in the trees. They're under the ground. They aren't in things, but they're on them. They wrap themselves around things, and they are disguisers. They are shadows, and we do not ever speak their name, nor do we ever speak about them, even though, as I tell you now, I must shut up. You now know what I'm talking about. There are those things we do not speak of, even though we know they're there. And he said, that's all I can say about it. And got up and walked out the woods and left me sitting there with my mouth on my chin, or, down here going, oh, holy crap. I'm starting a ceremony, a 2-day ceremony. And he drops this bombshell on me. Like, okay, don't look for the red eyes. Well, what are you going to look for? The red eyes. Well, during one particular point of that ceremony, in one particular direction, because you pray to each north, south, east, and west, up, down. You ask the Creator, you ask the spirits of the earth to bless what you're asking. And that you only want, so you're just stating your intentions of what you want with the place. Like, I still do, the fires will be for, for healing and for understanding. And, so I state my purpose. So if you will allow this, give me a sign, and then all of a sudden, there's an owl in the tree over my head that goes, whoo, whoo, and scares the crap out of me, and then I'm like, well, okay. So then, and you also are tuned into whatever direction you're in and whatever the entities related to north, south, east, west, up, down. And so before you can move to the next, you have to make sure that you're done with this one. You don't go to the next station unless you're absolutely positively certain you're done. And they'll let you know. It's like, I spent very little time in the south kind of deal. And I was like, whoa, that was quick. But when I got to the north and the west, that's when those that you do not speak of made themselves really present. Hours and 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 hours through the middle of the night until sunup. I couldn't get off of the west. And there were beings in the woods, and I could feel them. And I was doing my best to just, but I was told they will try to intervene your circle. They will try to get on your blanket. Don't step off the blanket. Once you consecrate yours, don't. And in a lot of ways, it's almost like drawing a pentagram, and if you're doing some kind of evil spell, don't go out of the circle. Don't go out of the pentagram. He said, don't leave your blanket. That's like, will you consecrate your blanket? This is your sacred blanket. Don't move off of it. Don't. If you got to pee, go to the back or something, but don't move off your blanket until everything is complete. And you'll know when it's complete. It was sun up and I was tired. I had been drumming. I had been singing. I had been praying, and I mean loud prayer. They could hear me for miles, I am sure. And then I was like, to the point of exhaustion, because I'd been at this since sundown, and the sun's coming up now. And I'm, total drumming, total into it, total thing, but it's starting to take toll on me now. All of a sudden, I hadn't heard a peep out of an owl or anything. And there are a lot of owls in my woods in the swamp. And they'll hoot, and you can hear one down there and then another one up there. Not one owl hooted during that time until it was time to be over. And then that owl came back to the same tree over my head and let out 3 big hoots. Hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. And I was like, and then all of a sudden, it was over. I just literally collapsed on my blanket and went, wow, that was intense. So my understanding of spirits and beings and things, okay. When I spoke to Joe about it, and I talked to the medicine man about it, I said, now, what does that mean? He goes, man, shoot. He said, I was up here towards the house. He said, I could hear you drumming and singing. And it's a half mile down there to the thing. Through the woods, he said, I could hear you. Every single word you said, word for word, up here at the house. In the house. And he said, I was about to the point where I was going to put pillows over my head. And he said, there was an owl in a tree right here beside the big oak tree right here. And he said, an owl hooted. And I said, there was an owl in the tree right here? And he goes, yeah. And I said, there was an owl in the oak tree above where I was down there that hooted. So his observation from here and just listening literally in the distance, and 2 separate owls at apparently relatively the same time, because he said when he heard the owl in the oak tree, he couldn't hear the owl down on the river because of this one. But he said the drumming stopped, the singing stopped, and he said, I felt calm all of a sudden. And I was like, well, okay. So animals will allow you. They are a direct connection with spirit. I don't know how else to explain it. There are people who say that owls are evil and that they represented evil. Owls are wise. It's the wisdom. When somebody tries to steal the energy of the owl, they're trying to steal the wisdom of the owl. They're trying to see through the darkness of the owl. And through my shaman, through my looking at those, and some of these critters, I mean, I can't even, if I begin to think about them, no. I've never seen a movie, never seen anything to describe anything like I witnessed, saw, and experienced on my own in the spirit realm during that shamanic ritual there. It was a dedication. It wasn't a ritual. Yeah, okay. It was a ceremony. It was a blessing, if you will. Nothing hokey pokey. If anything, it was to make all the negative spirits go away and stay away from this area, to create a clear zone, if you will, of negative. Some of them bad boys did not like that shit at all and did not want to leave. That's all I can say. I can't believe I'm telling this story. Oh my God. But the fight, I'm the amount of emotional, spiritual, psychic, wadded up into a ball, pushed against something that wherever it is over there ain't nice. And it ain't nice so much is that your whole body has dropped in temperature because the outside temperature just got cold because the entity is nearby and the temperature dropped. I mean, it wasn't bad, but I mean, it would have, for me, in, early spring, but it wasn't into the 60s. Well, maybe 68. That's not cold to me. But this was like it was 58, 40, I mean, almost see your breath kind of deal. And I never stepped off that blanket until that owl told me it was all right. So when I say this tinfoil, if you're still there or whomever's listening or might hear this, I say this in respect that I'm pretty sure I know what I'm speaking about that I'm not channeling several entities. No, I have a spirit guide, guardian angel, whatever you wish. Now, other entities have come and had a conversation or two with me, but I have one spirit guide. I'm main person, dude, whatever, lady. Sometimes I think it. There was this several years ago. I actually thought that there was a switch. I was like, wait a minute. The energy coming from my shoulder seemed feminine, and I think that was on purpose because I needed mother's love. I needed a female hand. Partially, I think that's one reason why Mother Mary comes and visits and reassures me. She's just like, hi, good job, see you later, keep on track. I don't get these big, long flowing. Sometimes I get some inspiration, but it's usually something I've already seen or heard. But now I see it in a spiritual way that maybe before it was just a 2D almost way. It was just letters on a book and it didn't take form and become 3D. And from that, it just didn't come up from the page, but then it expounded into a 4D realm that had its own time zone kind of thing. I know. So this time that we are in right now, man, is it amazing. And being able to speak with people around the world about their own experiences and what their observation is from their time zone, what their observation is from their point on planet Earth, what the stars and the planets and everything looks like. Simply amazing. We are in amazing times. But I personally, and this is coming from above and around, because I've been terrified of the planet blowing up. I've been assured it's not gonna blow up. It's not gonna flip over. At least not right away. It's going to take a long while for this thing to happen with a lot of changes, roly, poly. But we're not going to do the pole flip thing. But there are some serious changes on this earth about to happen. It has to, because it's time. It's just time. Cycle, this natural cycle is like summer, fall, winter, spring. That's all it is. It's just another cycle. I see stuff written over there and I don't have my glasses on. Let me go back up here because I do want to make comments. even facing those dark aspects of their own personality. By seeing these entities that I did, that's what sent me on this little talk about those you do not speak of. Some of that I realized was actually that this was a long time afterwards, was actually a projection of my own darkness. That was weird. Life is unkind, but is also where it's at, unfortunately. Yeah, but I'm going to have a conversation on another video about what people say, and I know what they mean, and they're good with their positive in this, but they say, well, you can manifest your own destiny. Well, that's true, but if you live in a concentration camp, it's really difficult to manifest a really decent life if you're living in a concentration camp. I mean, okay, I'm sorry, if you live in a pit that's surrounded by alligators, that's your reality, and so you can try to imagine a better situation, but if the alligators don't want to go, then you got to deal with the alligators. And that's sort of where we are. There are a lot of alligators around we're having to deal with. I'm channeling now. Yes, I kind of sort of was. I'm simply listening to my higher self. There is a part in my brain when I used to do puppets that I could tell, I could access, and it's up here, but I just think it's more of like just cosmic energy that just helps. It's not necessarily a being channeling the energy. It's that you're getting energy, allowing yourself to hear. Okay. Nikola Tesla and his ascension was beyond a simple comprehension, so people can reach those heights, but applying it practically, so people who have the gifted intelligence are those who are chosen. We are all chosen. Some of us just woke up to it sooner. I mean, we're all chosen. That's part of this deception. Part of, you don't think you can do it? Well, here, try this. These little simple things that I tried 50 years ago that I'm learning now how to see with your fingers around corners and know that what's there. I mean, it's creepy, but it's cool. We all have that because there are people now who are showing the new star kids coming in onto this planet that they can put a blindfold on and walk around school all day and not bump into a damn thing because they could see through their third eye like a blind person sees but can't explain it to you. I've said this in a different video, but to that point, they're using their own inane gift. Blind people, they can see. You ask them, how do you get around New York City and you know what street you're on? Well, I can tell by this and this. Some of them can actually see in their third eye what road they're on. Okay. They can see, maybe not clearly, but they can see enough, but they don't see like you and me. They're not looking with their eyes. They might be looking with their face up, but they're actually looking with this, their thought. And it's been proven and proven more, and more is going to come out about that. And so we all have this gift. It's not special. What's special is having somebody to show you how to help bring it out. That's all. And the ascension part and the rapture would be, oh my God, you mean I can do these little simple, oh my God, I can, don't have to turn on the light to go to the toilet, or, I mean, whatever the thing is. I mean, that's my thing, but how come I never knew that much about the difference between the left and the right hand? Exactly. And seeing, I just let out a trade secret, but it's not. It was just something that I hadn't learned. Okay. A little trade, but not. But, left, right. And you hear about the left. Well, lefty loony. Well, right now, that's kind of depicting negative. So would that be the left hand? Oh, never mind. Dexterity, I sort of see. Reserve the spoken word for the good, so to speak. Yes. You can even speak positively to speak against a negative. You can speak negatively by using positive words. And I'm going to continue going into that, but not now. This is 2 hours and 30 minutes. So you're a real life shaman. Other people say so. I feel like I'm still an apprentice. And it's my personal thing. When I can transport myself, fit my body, I can transport my thoughts. But when I get to the point where I can transport the rest of me, then I think I will have become a shaman. But yes, in many terms, I am a shaman. Yes. There is no doubt. I've taken the training, and I don't mean this lightly. I'm talking days of sweat lodge, and this ain't just I went down and met a couple of guys and we smoked a peace pipe and sat in a teepee. Oh no. Whoa. Now I haven't hang from my chest yet, like the Lakota and the Sundance and that. Oh, nope, haven't done that yet, but I've done similar things. I have went through the mark of fire, and it doesn't really show up here on the camera, but there is it's my tattoo right there. And I had to be able to see, and I was instructed in the ceremony to lay a coal on my hand, on the back of my hand, which I did. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but I was being observed to see how I was doing, kind of thing, by my shaman medicine man. I don't know how long that coal stayed on my hand. I don't know. I couldn't feel it. And I mean, it was red hot, little flamey flames on the end of this, a big piece of stick out of the I took it out of the fire and put it on the back of my hand. And the real me was going, "You're nuts. What are you doing?" And the shaman me said, "Shut up." I never felt the pain from that coal. And then I was told, "Okay, remove it." So I took the coal off of my hand. Still felt no pain. Towards the end of the ceremony, as I was winding things down, the fire was dying down, I was asked to hold my hand up like this. There was no blister or anything on my hand. To hold my hand up like this and just hold it over just little bitty bits of coal. And as I did so, the heat hit the back of my hand, and I thought my entire arm was on fire. For during the ceremony, the pain had been gone. But when that last moment of this fire ceremony of mine was that we showed you that pain is in the head, so to speak. But we're also going to show you too that when you step out of this reality of this ceremony, the pain is there. We're returning the pain to you, not in sevenfold or as a bad act or whatever, but here's the pain. Now, to the point, it didn't hurt real bad. I mean, it was sore, and I had to wrap it up because as it took 2 days for there be anything to come up on my hand. Now, I've been burned before, and a blister will come up almost immediately. I never got a blister on my hand, but I do have that scar, and that's my badge. That's how I get in, kind of thing. Is like, see that scar? That's my right. That's my fire. That's my fire thing right there. You know, and I wear it proudly. I don't have tattoos. I'm not into tattoos because there's nothing in this world or planet or whatever that I feel I should tattoo on my body. It's just the thing. It's not the pain. It ain't the pain. But as far as a tattoo or a badge or a mark on my person, this one I'm very proud of. So, and with that lesson, it was sore for about a week, 10 days. And then it just stopped hurt. No pain, no nothing, no bad skin. I mean, I laid that thing on my hand. My shamanic medicine men told me that thing must have been on my hand for 10 minutes. While I was in my trance state, shaman state, he said, he said, and when it started to roll off, you put it back on. But when you're in that state, when you're in that prayer state, when you're in that communication, the body does not exist. It just doesn't. You step, you're still in it, but you step out of it while you're doing it. And I could see my motions in my dance. I could see the drumming with my hand and holding the drum. I could see the sage burn. I could do the smudging. I knew the rocks. I knew the crystals. Those things were all that. But Dave had stepped out of the body because I felt absolutely no pain. So I did after the ceremony, though, but not like it should have. I'm saying it. This thing I should have had to went to the doctor and got, the silver cream and stuff. I mean, it was a nasty burn. Nothing. Proof. They're telling me, Dave, you can heal yourself and we'll heal you, but you got to believe 100%. That's that other 100%. I've spoke about this before. You must believe 100%. If you don't believe that you can put a burning coal on your hand and not feel it, it's going to burn you. But if you believe that you can go through it, or, some of the native cultures talk about walking on coals. Well, they got really tough feet too. If you stomp on them coals, it could seriously burn you. But to the other side of the coin, though, if you, hey, Marie, okay, I'm back. My son took over the laptop for a short. It's okay. Gone camping. Woo! I'm planning on going camping. Of course, folks say I'm already camping here where I live. But anyway, so this shamanic, I hate to call it, it's ritual, ceremony. And there are those who want to bastardize what a ceremony is. Well, ceremony must mean, you must sacrifice something. The only thing I ever sacrificed was me. I sacrificed my hand. I've sacrificed my own blood, but never, ever are you to take the life of anything in any way as a sacrifice for what you want to see, do, or otherwise learn. Oh, no. You talk about them things that you shouldn't speak about coming after your tail end. Ooh, they'll carry you off like this. It's not nice. It ain't pretty neither. And so there are other stories of the shaman type that I must reserve for another time. But our position in the universe and how we view it, how we view each other, and like for you, Marie, glad you're back. You said something the other day, something about slipping off in a thunderstorm or something to go to the grocery store or something. And I thought to myself, I could almost see you doing that. I don't know you. I don't have a picture of you. But in my mind's eye somehow, simply because you've been on the other end of this chat, that I have this little tiny itty bitty piece of connection with you. And especially when you said that, because I understand what that is. You got to go to the store, blah, blah. And so, but the whole thing was, but in my mind, I heard this little Jewish woman, not to say you are, but I heard this old phrase that I had heard before. Oh, we got to schlep to the store. Neely, we got to schlep to the store. And I was laughing internally. That's not what you said, but it prompted this little voice in the back of my head. And I thought, gee, how cool. I should share this next time I'm with, I see Marie. But to the point, though, I was like, there was some little, for like almost a half an instant, because I've seen rain and storms and blah, blah, blah. I was like, I could see your world for an instant. That's all. Just nothing else. Just rain, slept, store. Okay. And it was like, I got it. I got it. I felt it, and I was like, cool, and at the same time, I was like, well, wait a minute. That was just my thought. And she just said that. And I said, no, because it's happened with other people, but I just thought I'd bring it up since we're here talking now. It's just you and me, girl. So, but I thought, later on, I was like, she's in the rainstorm, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I could almost see it. Walking person, it's like, oh, that's really interesting. And it was just sort of like the negative of a movie, old film, when you took a picture on film, you hold the negative up. So, and so the bright spots are maybe could be anyway. So with that, though, it was sort of like that. And it was a quick little MPEG film kind of deal. But it struck me as that, well, that was just curious, that I could see that little bit of your life at that point kind of thing. Not that I actually saw it. That's not what I mean. But in my little interpretation of what you wrote, that's what I saw. And it was cool. I was like, well, all right. But anyway, but in this time zone frame thing, one can often wonder, we have made a connection over this streaming thing here. You see me, I don't see you, but there's still this connection because of the wire, right? And the energy that flows. And so that, I don't know, did I really kind of see her going to the, going schlepping in the rain, And I just found it humorous in that I would stop and, back up and question that little thought. But in all of these discussions as to things going on now, it was really brief. It was really short. There was not much detail, but it was like I felt it. That was the point. And so, but I've slept to the store to raise. So it was like, all right. Was I there and could I feel it? Or was it just my interpretation? It's just something that is toss up. I thought it was humorous, a good kind of humorous, But anyway, wait, I can't read it. If you wrote something down, I just. Broadcasting worldwide, big league. Yeah, big league. Now don't get me wrong. 50 subs to me is 49 more people than I thought I would ever speak to. Honest to God, because my journey has not been the numbers. I don't ask people to share. I'm not in any way monetized, blah, 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 unless they do it illegally against me. But, good point. Freedom is relative. Freedom from what, right? Exactly. I spent a year in prison, and I learned what freedom was. And they could put me behind bars, but they couldn't take my freedom. They could bend me over and stick a thing up my butt and check and see if I had any illegal substances, which certain of them guys really like to do, I have to say. We didn't like it, but, we made hooch. I was probably one of the few people who could make really good jailhouse wine and not get caught. And they went in looking for it. Oh my God, and still didn't find it. So there is freedom everywhere if you choose to use what's available. If you're surrounded by alligators or crocodiles and you need a pair of shoes, it might be that you end up with crocodile shoes, or alligator shoes, who knows? So I learned when I was in prison that, I didn't kiss anybody's ass, but I did what I was told, which is a difference. And the time that I stood up against somebody, they threw me in. They threw me in solitary for 4 days. I went from working in the kitchen as to being in charge, and I was for like 7 months. I was in charge of the stock room, all the meat that got cut, all the potatoes. I was manager of certain parts of the kitchen, and we served 725 meals 3 times a day, every single day, and I never had a day off. Even when I cut my hand, they made me go to work in the kitchen without pain meds. Thank God that one guard brought me some Tylenol. He wasn't supposed to, but he brought it for me. But anyway, so I learned how to play the game, and the game was pretty easy. Like yesterday, oh, I'm sorry, Marie. Okay, I'm back. Ha ha ha. Right. Like yesterday when I saw that glimpse of you walk in. Oh, when you saw the glimpse of my walk in, yeah. It might not even be what he looks like, but was how my mind's eye saw him. Exactly. Exactly. And somehow what you saw and the going to, I don't know. And what's interesting, though, is the fact that as we discuss, I'm doing all the yapping, of course, but I'm still trying to discuss what you write and try to relate however it is in this cosmic reality. So you see my walk-in, and I'm envisioning rain and things, and so what's to say that we aren't right? Because that's what the veil is being lifted of. We're going to be able to see our other folks' things and this and that, and the communication. And I might have told this story, but and I'm not going to go into it much. But my granny and I, we weren't even related by blood or anything. She was my adopted grandmother, but she was a lovely lady, and we knew what psychic energy was before anybody talked about it. We knew what we were talking about. And I'd go to Granny's house after school, and she'd sit down, and she loved old Milwaukee beer, and one a day. And the thing is that I would go and sit with her. People would call it hallucinations. They can call it whatever they want if they don't understand it. They would call it foolishness and poppycock and delusional. We are delusional, Miss Marie, because we might even consider to think this way. And now I say this because recently in my conversations and things with folks on Facebook, I really understand my classmates and folks that I grew up with, and even my family, don't have a clue as to where I'm at. I mean, you understand me better than all the people that have known me for 50 years because they refuse to look in at all. You know what I'm saying? And I identify with other people that I've never met, and I go, holy cow. And they have said similar things like, someone, it might have been the retired Marine. He shocked me again with something old Steve Motley did. And he was like, we're all connected. And he was talking spiritual again. You called me a tripper. Have you ever tripped LSD, mushrooms, anything like that? Or is that just a way of thought? I'm just curious. Because some folks are trippy and have never been anywhere near even marijuana, or something like that. But for me now, I was in mental health, and at the time I was really trying to answer the questions and be honest. So they sent home this questionnaire of like 150 questions, and they were like, we will know if you're lying. Okay. So I brought this thing home, my appointment, long time ago, but that's different experience to how I already experienced it paranormal. Understood. But you had that experience as well, along with, okay. But see, there are some folks that have had the paranormal experience but never had the trippy part. And so they don't have anything to compare to or, judge against or whatever. So I don't know. It seems like people who have tripped in some way, form, or fashion, even if it was just one or two or something, their reality, they understand a reality that folks who have never tripped simply they can't experience. You have to trip to know what it is. I'm not saying everybody should go out and do it. That's not my point. But don't say you know what it is unless you have, period. I'm sorry, But I have said to people, I would not trust any type of lysergic diethylamide, LSD, anything like that that's pharmaceutical coming around nowadays. I do not take it. Do not take it. Do not take it. It ain't what it is. It might trip you, but it's going to kill you in more ways than you know. Now, the acid we got back in the day, this was stuff that was done by chemists at the local college. They were making it for themselves so they could pave their way through college. Same thing with the reefer we was buying back then, I was buying what they called back then. It was it was called Gainesville Green because of Gainesville, Georgia. And Gainesville is the University of Florida big ag department. And so a lot of them old hippies this was in the late 60s and early 70s. These guys learned how to grow great weed in hydroponics and stuff like that. So to pay for their college, they would sell a pound of the best weed for $80. Trouble was you had to buy 3 pounds at a time. Oh, sorry. But anyway, a lot of that weed went past my lips, I tell you. But, and there are still the old timers who talk about Gainesville Green and the Tallahassee Two-Toke, because those were locally grown strains of weed before all this strainy crap came out. And it was really, you took Two-Toke to this stuff and you were like, whoa, way before hydroponics started. This would have been before 79, before I ended up in prison kind of thing. So, but anyway, lots of old drugstore hippie things, blah, blah, blah. How I literally for 2.5 hours outran the GBI and the state police and ended up not going to jail. Oh, what a story that one is. And they still don't like me. There's still some local sheriffs in Thomasville that are pissed I got away from them. I avoided 3 roadblocks in this chase from literally 2.5 hours northeast of me, little town out in the middle of nowhere, but that's where the weed was, and we were going to go pick it up. A new girlfriend of mine, knew her like 2 months, called me up out of the blue. Hey, I'm going to go pick up, some stuff. Want to go with me? Blah, blah, blah. I just want somebody to ride with me. Okay. And I went. And then I found out she was like, I don't want to drive back. Can you drive back? I'm tired. Sure. I knew the back roads. And I had a nasty feeling while we were there, but on the way home, I could tell when you're on a long country road, there shouldn't be 4 vehicles way back trying to not be seen. I've been down them roads too many times. That's not normal. So I would take a right-hand turn, a left-hand turn, and then it took them 30 minutes to figure out which road I took. It was great at the time. Scary as shit because we damn near all went to prison. But I was able to get out of it. She didn't. But, I just went along for the ride. But I got my ass out of it. And she almost did too. And I tried to say, if you, blah, 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 well, I got to go home. And this guy's waiting on his stuff. And, and he was the one that turned her in. So anyway, But the fact that we avoided three major, and from what the description was, and the guy that I talked to on the phone who was like, you bring that marijuana to me right now. We know you were in that vehicle. We've got pictures. And I was like, what marijuana? You didn't see me get out of my truck with any marijuana because you didn't even know where the hell I was. You know, I I blew three of your, I'm not going through them. I avoided three of their major, I mean, 3 or 4 police cars and the whole nine. Think of the movies. That's what they had. And then the last left turn that I made, they thought they had us cornered. There was no way out. And there was a state patrol and 2 county mounties following up behind us. And when they got to the roadblock and we weren't there, oh, it was something like out of the Dukes of Hazzard. And we were just in a little Nissan pickup. It wasn't, and I wasn't driving fast. That wasn't it. But I knew the roads and they didn't. I knew the back roads. Just by living around here, I used to live down some of those dirt roads. I just went where what I knew, but they didn't. And I could make a left, drive a little bit, take a ride down through a farmer's field and end up on another road. And I was gone. That was that. They couldn't find us. They never found out. They knew where I lived, but they could never make it to my house. They ended up scrapping. Well, I'd already blown 2 of the roadblocks and had just avoided the last and third and there, we got him now crap. And they all split up so fast, and there's no direct way to get anywhere from where we were. It's all turn left, or you got to drive all the way into this town and then cut back down. And I knew the short little quick ways on the dirt roads and all the back ways, but they had no idea where it went, where we went. And so I literally, and I went down because I knew it, and it wasn't very far. You could see the other road kind of thing, but I knew that there was this plowed field, and on the edge of it was a 2-lane track that the farmer went up and down, because I'd plowed this field for this guy once at one time, and he grew vegetables. Long story, but I knew that little track across this guy's 2.5 acre field or whatever it was. And so instead of going down to the next dirt road and around and blah, 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 I cut through his on the little 2-lane track to the next street over. And it veered to the right, where this one kind of went back into town and we would have got caught. The other one took us out of town and even further in the road. It was sort of a private road. It was just between 2 fields, really, was all it was. And just where the farmer went, and there was a fence. He owned this one, and this guy owned that one. And it was just the fence road, But I knew it. I knew I could drive it, and I knew I could drive it pretty fast, because when I seen them guys come up behind me, we looked at each other in the truck, and not a word was spoken. And I was almost past the road when I made the hard left. And that's when they went ahead and went by us, thinking that we were in front of them, when actually I'd turned. So, but anyway, oh my God. When I think of the crap that they went through, and okay, some might say, but it was a pound of marijuana. Well, there were 6 of us who had split into it, and it was going to be our personal stash. It wasn't for sale. It was just a group of us who would pool money together, and if we could get a deal, we would buy it. And I'd buy 2 ounces of weed, and I would because I didn't want to be on the street looking for it all the time. I just kept it, and I smoked it as I needed it or wanted it or whatever. When it ran out, I looked for another deal. That's how it worked. I wasn't on the street all the time. I had a good job, and I didn't want to get busted, So, and this was just one of them things. I was just going to ride with her to go pick up, what several of us had bought into, and was going to be our stash. So it was never intended, at least mine was never intended to be sold. And if it would have been to my best friend, who would buy, and we would like, okay, how much did you spend? It was $100. Okay, here's $100, And that was that, but then he'd come up and say, hey man, I got a couple, I thought you want one. Yeah. Okay. So it was a trade kind of thingy, back in the day. And I knew people, he knew people, and some people would run dry and nobody have any weed. And so and there was always a point, especially when I had the money, if I could buy two and it was actually cheaper almost than buying one, then I bought two because I knew I was going to smoke it, So just what it was. We had a private road that ran the back of the property, also used for the fire trucks to access so we could get permission to the fence. That part due to cattle, but not locked, so in case of fire hazards. Yeah. Well, there wasn't, thank goodness, there wasn't a fence to this, but it was a really narrow little spot to go across the ditch, though. I remember that one almost, the right wheel almost hit the culvert, but we got out of it, at least most of it. And when she got to her home, they had planted people in her house. They broke into her house and were in the back bedroom. It was really weird. But when she got home, she had met somebody along the way at the store before she got home. So I took part of that pound. This other person took the other part. So when she got home, there was only half of what they thought they were going to bust her with. So, and then when she gets there, she hands a quarter pound to the third person or whatever, and he hauls ass with it. They take chase out of town, actually towards my house of all places, and he wrecks at the river and flips his truck upside down, and the weed gets dumped in the river and they don't recover it. So with all the plans that they had, all the manpower, all the money and the gas and the vehicles, to get 1 pound of weed. And when they ended up with it, they ended up with 4 whole ounces that they ended up busting that lady with. 4 ounces, which was way over an ounce, and it was a felony. But to the point, these stupid buttholes went to all this trouble for 1 single lousy pound of weed. Is that not stupid? I mean, but there are boys in blue, and they're the drug squad, and they get special money to do these things. Oh my God. So they can look good in the newspaper. If it had been cocaine or heroin, but it was a bag of weed, a big bag, but So the things that have happened with me, I mean, I wasn't trying to be a criminal. I just wanted to have my own stash so that I didn't have to be out on the road and trying to buy this and that, and I was just fortunate enough that I knew people who knew people who knew people. And it was a very quiet, secret underground. And it was like, hey, in a couple of days, I'll give you a call. We didn't even have to speak it. All you had to do was say, hey, because the meant, do you know where I can get a bag? That was the rest of the sentence. So if you just said, hey, do you know? That was it. You call somebody, hey, do you know? I don't know. Do you know? No, that's what I called you. You know what time we're going to go to the, so the first bit of the conversation was, and if anybody was listening, do you know what? Do you know if I can buy a bag of weed? No. But that was our trip code kind of deal. As secretive as it was, whether anybody was listening back then or not, we just, that was it. That was our precaution. It kept me out of jail most of the time. And I wouldn't have went and gotten busted in Tampa if that hadn't been a setup from the get-go, but oh well. Went to Tampa for the weekend and spent a year. So I'm going to cut this because I want to go out. It's 2:30 my time, Eastern Daylight, 1:30 on my clock in my world. It's 3 hours that I've been doing this, Miss Marie. I want to go out and check the stars. I want to see how things have moved around. So I may or may not come back on tonight because I want to go check the stars and things. And I got something else I got to check. And I got to follow up on. So I'm going to cut this one short of 4 hours. 4:30 afternoon, Friday. Oh, it is Friday, isn't it? That's right. Well, have a good afternoon, Miss Marie. And I might be back on. I'm going to go out and do my little thingy. I slept most of the day, so I'm like pretty much awake. But anyway, I might be back on later on. I got another subject that I want to broach to. And I don't want to make 8-hour long videos. That's just not the way it should go. It's been cold, so I've been hibernating, not doing much. How cold does it get down there, by the way? I know you're in Celsius and I can convert, but what kind of temperature you got there? Right. What kind of temps? Colder the more south, right. But I mean, give me a temperature like, is it 10 degrees Celsius or what? You go by Celsius or Fahrenheit down there? I hadn't thought of that. English does English. Australia being an English colony. Curious. Oh, so you do Celsius. Okay. I was just having this brain fart. As a machinist, there's the English standard of thousandths of per inch versus the metric system, which is, not nearly as accurate. But I digress. But I was just curious that Australia sort of being the Queen's colony, blah, 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 if whether or not you did Celsius, I'd say 20s. Okay, so 20s. Well, that's not too bad. That'd be like, I guess, about the 45-ish around here, sort of. And see, when I've learned to adjust my body temperature, so as it gets colder, instead of putting on more stuff, I try to acclimate to the cooler temperature. That's what it was. I need to write that down. And while I'm speaking to you, before I go real quick, have you ever heard of the movie or the book? It's an old one by Shirley MacLaine called Out on a Limb. I see it drops a fair bit. Yeah. Well, this movie's back in the 90s, okay? And it was Shirley MacLaine's visit, and her desert gets extremely cold. Yes, it does. Well, if you can look it up, Out on a Limb, it talks about her spiritual journey and how she went down to South America, and they were all gonna, here's your little hut to go in and sleep and all. And she's like, they gave her this one Indian blanket, woven Indian blanket that you see, right? And she was like freezing to death, and because she's used electric blankets and all this stuff, and all these people, they just got their blanket and went to their spot and went to sleep. And so she was like, couldn't do it. And so she met with her partner that was showing, he was like a shaman to her in a way. And he was like, your cold is in your mind. The blanket, if you allow the blanket to heat you, it will. And he gave her little simple instructions like, hey, stop and quit shivering, and don't focus on that you're cold, focus on you're warm. And she said, in no time, it was amazing. She said, I quit shivering, and I realized I wasn't cold, and I realized I was actually comfortable, and I went to sleep and had a great night's sleep. And the next day it was like, oh my God, it was this huge thing that she had just learned simply by allowing this tiny little blanket that she thought wouldn't keep her warm, actually kept her quite nicely, like a placebo. Yeah. So we teach ourselves, I got a friend of mine, the one that we did the gas thing with, I went to dinner with the other night. In the summertime, she has the air conditioner on 68. In the wintertime, it's on 78. I sweat to death when I go visit her in the wintertime because I'm used to my house being about 70, 68, you know, and I go to her house and I'm sweating literally. And in the summertime, I go over and I take a long sleeve shirt because she's got it so cold. I'm acclimated to the warmer temperatures and I freeze to death in her house. And she's like, when I go outside, I can't take the heat. And I'm like, do you know what you're doing to your body? Do you really understand? 68 in the summer and it's in your head. It really 75 would really probably be nice in your house, but you just have convinced yourself that unless it's this temperature, you're not comfortable, but she won't hear it. No, it's not in my head. I'm really cold or I'm really okay, fine. But I've proven too many times with too many people that if you stop buying into the paradigm, I'm cold, I'm hot. Now I have a lot of issues with the heat, but it's a real issue. And I can't make myself cool. I sweat already, but cold I can deal with in ways that I would have died in the 20 years ago. I don't think I could have handled. Oh, the cold. Oh, I'm dying. It's 40 degrees. I'm dying. Now I think 40 degrees. Better put on a jacket. And so my point of reference is my thought. So as I've changed my thoughts down the years, I require less firewood, which is a whole lot easier on me because I'll spend 3 or 4 months doing nothing but cutting firewood because I think I have to have it 75 in the house in the wintertime. When I quit thinking I had to have it at 75 and at 68 would be okay, I quit using 2/3 of the wood and I'm still comfortable. It's just like, okay. And some friends come to visit me, and the wood that I thought would last me the rest of the winter, it 2 nights' time had burned up all of my firewood because they were used to 80 degrees in the wintertime because they were from Florida. And I was like, well, there went my firewood. And it was gone before I could eat, and I'm not going to tell my visitors, no, you can't be warm. But I was like, crap in a bag. You used the rest of my firewood, Okay, but it's just, it really is. It's a mental state. So if we think we hurt, we will. If we think, it's not too bad. Sometimes when at the time I almost cut my leg off with a chainsaw, the bar that came loose, anyway, I taped myself up and drove 20 miles out of the wilderness and back through. I had to go through 4 different fences and gates and cows. And oh my God, I was in the middle of nowhere. And when I got to the hospital, there wasn't any blood. And the skin was already starting to grow back. And so, and I didn't have any insurance back then. So rather than going ahead and have them sew me up, they looked at me and was starting to write me up. And it was like, well, the guy looked down and goes, did you make those butterfly bandages? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, well, it looks like you did a pretty good job. And I don't know what else we could do for you. So I never even got a stitch in my leg. I went home, and kept it up for a day and kept it taped up so the skin wouldn't separate. It never got infected. I should have lost the calf of my leg. Holy mackerel. But again, I think it's a way of thought. It's my way of thinking that it's not going to get infected. So I convinced myself you're not going to get infected. Now, I've had good luck and I've had bad luck. Sometimes I haven't had the energy. You're still chatting. Hold your inspiration for later. Yeah. Well, but there is another subject, but it does have to do with the out on a limb syndrome. So, but I just thought while we were here, I would toss that out to you, Miss Marie, and because it's very interesting. And here's this actress, and she's still around, and she still has this glow about her. I don't know. She's always had a little piece of my heart. I know. A beautiful redhead, been in the movies, oh my God, she was the cat's meow in the day. She's still a nice looking woman in her 70s or maybe even 80s now, But to the point, though, what she taught me all those years ago from her experience allowed me to say, you know, Shirley MacLaine, a woman, an attractive woman, yeah, okay, but she's admitted being frail, and she's admitted not having understanding, and admitted not being strong-willed in certain ways and things. And for her to admit her own shortcomings and faults in that respect, to have had the realization that, oh my God, I don't have to freeze to death. It's more of a matter of thought. Yeah, she might have several, but she wrote a book called Out on a Limb, and it was also a movie made. I got it on VHS, and it come across to me last night, early this morning, that this is inspiration that I had from someone, just an obscure person. I mean, she's a famous actress, and there were a lot of people who poo-pooed her and banned her and you crazy and this and that. And you know what? She stuck to her guns, just like Ed Asner has. He stuck to his gun. She stuck to her guns. She hasn't gone back on, well, you know, what I said in that book was just hogwash. Nope, she ain't gone back. Now, she's not as public as she was about it, but she hasn't retracted her statements and said, you know, what I've learned and what I believe and blah. And she believes in ETs for example. And, you know, but Shirley MacLaine is like, well, yeah, but she's the weird. Yeah, she's that redheaded weirdo, that out on a limb person. But you know what? She's more spiritual than a lot of folks ever give credit. She has an understanding that is so deep and so powerful and so just to the core of being a human being. She found out through just a little bit of coaching what her God source was, what her feminine source was, what her self was. And it's in all of us. We just have to acknowledge it and have someone with patience and kindness show them. When I've showed my sister some things, and she's not into this stuff, but when her son died very unexpectedly, I had to have a little chat with her and explain, you know, that Anthony hasn't really left you, sister. You know, rather than mourn him, accept him and ask him to come with you, be with you. And, you know, you're his mother. There is an attachment that just won't quit. You know, just because he's passed over don't mean he's gone. In this world, yes, but Lynn, you know, Lynn, my darling sister, please. He was close to your heart. He still is, but you must accept that he is, you know. And oh my God, you know, my sister, she was well, like, yeah, Dave, well, I pray about it. You know, so in her little way, and I had to speak to her, not like a child per se, but she doesn't have a scientific mind and doesn't read anything, and like you, me, other folks of our particular awareness. She's aware of things in other ways, but needs to be spoken with in Bible terms or this term or that kind of thing that she can relate to. But with that, though, she has received, the last time I talked to her, an awareness that, yeah, you know, I don't quite feel as lonely about Anthony anymore. Really? Yeah, I can feel him around me. Now, she volunteered this information. I didn't have to ask, where before I had to ask. So there's already a change in my sister, you know, and it's like, it's subtle, it's little, but she has made that step. Instead of mourning him, which she, of course she misses him, but now she accepts that he might still be with her. What a groundbreaking thing, right? You mean that my son passed away, but his spirit might really still be with me? Oh my God. So then to learn about loss is maybe not really being a loss, just a change. But we have been taught to mourn and cry, and death is, and, you know, and so, of course, that's how we react. And unless someone shows us a different way to react to that, then you're at a loss. You miss these people. They're gone forever. No, they're not. And I can speak that because I've walked on either side of the fence. So I can speak from experience. We don't die. We just move into something else. Our body might die, but that's okay. But we don't. We continue. And my dear sister Lynn, your son ain't dead. He's just gone in this life. Really, really, truly. And allow him to come to you. And she did. And he has and does, I think it's a wonderful thing. And, and even if that's as far as my sister really gets, it's given her comfort. And she's not crying and weeping, at the loss. She's now rejoicing in the fact that she can feel his presence now. Oh, what a change. And the energy change that comes out of that, instead of mourning, now you're laughing and embracing life and the life after. And oh my God. So for anybody to come to any realization of that and feel it in their heart and in their soul, that's part of this awakening. Whoever you are, wherever you are, however you look at it, that is a big step. And I see people to me, it's a tiny step because of the giant steps I've seen in my own life. Now, I don't compare it, but I see what they did. That was a giant step for them. In my reality, in my world, it was a teeny step. Now, at the time that I had my teeny step, guess what? It was a big one. So I realized that my little teeny step way back was out on a limb. It was a huge step for me. I look back, that was a little one because of all the bigger steps and all the other things that I've seen. But I look at my sister as just an example. This is a giant step for her. And I'm hoping that that giant step, in that she'll realize that it actually was just a little step, that there are bigger steps and other things to come. I hope that made sense. Anyway, I've jawed too long. I went on for another 21 and 28 seconds, Marie. I wonder what her thoughts are on Scientology, like a few celebrities into it. I don't think she's into Scientology. No, she's in a different realm. I don't think she's a part of it, but I'm interested in her thoughts on it. I don't think maybe she is, but you see, a Scientologist wouldn't allow her to think the way she was thinking. They would want her to change that thought right there. And you have to be a free thinker, because when she went out on the limb and the movie and the book, nobody from Scientology would even climb the tree to get to the limb, let alone, venture out on it with her. And I seriously doubt once you go out on that limb, you can't come back. I mean, I know what I know about the cold and the heat and the this and the that and the self-healing and things and prayer and 100% believing, that it can be done. Whether you understand how it is, you just must understand that 100% it can be done. You don't have to know the mechanics of it. Just believe it can. That's all. And that is it's a tiny step, but a big one. And so I would be curious if you follow up on this, Miss Marie. I would be real curious what you find out about her. I'm going to do a separate thing on it. I'm going to try to get the video to play or to find the DVD or something. But there's a message more than that was in there, and it came to me in a download after I got off last night morning. And it is nothing more than a remembering. All righty. I love you much, you all. I'm out of here for this time. There are blessings, salutations, and from the Creator, from my heart soul to your heart soul, blessings, peace upon earth. And remember my new slogan: stop the hate, let's debate. I love you all. Goodbye for now. Bye. in 3, 2.